Okay, so we're going to get started. It's just 7 o'clock here now. Before I get into too much of my commentary, and I'm going to try to keep my portion really short because I have a bit of a reputation for going on and on and on and on, so I'll try to limit that for sure. I do want to say that our presentation this evening is being recorded, so just full transparency for the group, so it is being recorded. Our plan is to obviously hold our session this evening for our membership, and then we're holding a second session for any individuals that want to come in person that can't attend this evening. This coming Saturday from 12 to 1 p.m., also here up in the Mez. So I would like to start by thanking everyone who made the effort to join us this evening to allow us the opportunity to go through our upcoming tryout policy for the 2024-2025 upcoming season. I'd like to welcome any of the individuals in the room that are new to Sackville Minor Hockey Association. My hope is that you'll find it to be a wonderful environment for your children to grow, develop most importantly as individuals, have a lot of fun, and make a lot of new friends. I can attest to my own 3 boys that are currently going through Sackville Minor Hockey that for all 3 of them, they're best friends. They met here in Sackville Minor Hockey Association. So I hope that your children have the same experience. So I'm going to go down a limb. I think most people probably know who I am, but for anybody that is new to our association that happens to be in the room, my name is Rob Nurnberg. I am the current president of Sackville Minor Hockey Association. I started volunteering in Sackville 17 years ago. I didn't have any gray hair at the time, and I had no children. I was a non-parent coach. And was a non-parent coach for roughly about 4 or 5 years until my wife kind of gave me an ultimatum when we had her 3rd child that she needed me to be home to help her a bit more instead of being at the rink every night. So unfortunately I had to take a step away for a couple of years, but it was as soon as I had the opportunity to get my oldest boy Zach back into it, when he turned 4, I jumped at the opportunity and haven't looked back since. So it was 17 years ago. I'm just entering my 2nd full season as being the president of Sackville Minor Hockey Association. However, I've been a member of the executive for a little over 8 years now, thanks to Craig McDonald, who is a wonderful individual, gives a lot of his time as well to the Sackville Minor Hockey Association, and his wife has as well over the years approached me and asked if I would be interested in taking his position that he held at the time as VP of Initiation. It's an incredible part of our association to be in, to see just the joy and satisfaction for the young children as they have their first experiences of being a member of Sackville Minor Hockey Association, and the experiences and the joy and the happiness on their faces. I am going to post it again. I'm going to ask Helen to do it. And it just really, it's touches the heart for sure, but we have a program in Sackville where we have, for the young kids, where we do our hard hat program. We have orange hard hats that we give to the children during their practices throughout the season for, it could be anything that the coaches identified maybe that the child did that deserves some appreciation, recognition. And Helen's daughter, I know she doesn't mind me telling the story because I love telling it, but it's just so cute. I believe she was probably 4, maybe 5 at the time, and as everybody knows, like younger children, sometimes they haven't quite fully developed their speech 100%, and she had the hard hat, and Helen happened to be recording the video, and she put it on her daughter, and her daughter, like, as soon as she had it on, she said, "I've been waiting for this my whole life." And it was just the cutest thing. And so I hope, again, for any families that are new to Sackville Minor Hockey, that your children have the exact same experiences. We're blessed to have lots of great volunteers within our association, wonderful coaches that set great examples for the children throughout, from all levels up and down, and we're grateful for that. And I often say, from my perspective, and I think probably, in general across Canada, this is our church for me, and I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here right now. So, but anyway, I do want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for being in attendance, for caring, and being inquisitive about the upcoming process. As I mentioned, I'm into this will be my second full year as president of Sackville Minor Hockey Association. And after our process last year, I really wanted to take a bit of a step back to kind of process the experience for myself, because when I was in VP of initiation, I really had no exposure to anything really at the upper levels of the association. So it was a real great year for me to learn a lot as the president of the association. And if you recall, I put out a notice back in November of 2023. It sounds like forever ago, but it was actually the beginning of the start of our season last year. And in that communication that went out to our membership, one of the items that I mentioned was the creation of a tryout committee for efforts to be put forward for our upcoming season, to go through the process that we had in place currently at the time and look for maybe things that we do well, but also, most importantly, look for areas where we can make some positive changes to make it a better experience for everyone involved. So that went out in November of 2023. It was a very busy year with a lot going on for us as an executive. And so it wasn't until the end of, was probably, I would say roughly, just going off memory, I believe it was like in around January, we put the call out for any of our members in the association to put their name forward to be considered to be on our tryout committee. The objective of the committee was to have a really good cross-section of individuals from all areas of our association, from individuals that had their children in our Learn to Play program, which is our under 5 program, initiation players, U9, U11, U13, U15, and U18, and of all families with players in all positions as well. So anything from forwards to defense, and also goaltenders. So we had representation of all areas of our association were on our tryout committee, and I want to give my sincere thanks to the individuals that were on the tryout committee. We did have an amazing amount of individuals that put their name forward to be on the tryout committee. We had over 70 individuals put their name forward to be on our tryout committee. Obviously that would be too many people to have on the committee, so we kind of narrowed it down, but it was narrowed down again to make sure that we can capture like individuals that covered kind of the whole gamut of our association, to make sure that we had a good cross-section of ideas, so we could really give good consideration and collaboration, share ideas, brainstorm, and come up with what we felt was the best possible process for the upcoming season. So I want to give my sincere thanks to everyone that was on our tryout committee. We did send a communication out earlier this year as well with regards to the individuals that were on that tryout committee. So thank you again for your participation. And I don't know if necessarily we may be done with that, so I will continue to keep that particular group updated as we move through things. So we started our first meeting, so the call went out in January. We started our first meeting early May as a tryout committee. So that was, and we met not necessarily weekly. Some weeks it was weekly. If at the very minimum, it was every 2 weeks we would have a meeting as a group with that tryout committee. We formed after the first 4 weeks. We created subcommittees within our tryout committee as well, where those subcommittees took each individual subcommittee took a particular topic away as a group of individuals to work on that, and then bring it back to the greater group for consideration and, again, collaboration and brainstorming on that. So that was, again, we started in May. Our meetings went through until mid-July. And then after we concluded our meetings and our findings as a group, we voted on those proposals to be presented to the executive for approval. We approved, I believe, 11 items to be presented to the executive for approval. And then once that took place, we took those items to the executive to be voted on and approved as well. And that essentially brings us to where we are today. I will say it was it's an incredible amount of time and really sacrifice. Probably I missed. I'm not looking for pity or anything, because I got myself into this, but I missed my daughter's birthday party and my oldest son's birthday party at home because I was in meetings for our tryout committee. So And I'm not the only one. I'm sure others sacrifice things in their life as well. So there's a tremendous amount of time. It's not like turning a switch on or just putting a list together. There's a huge amount of effort and sacrifices that go on behind the scenes to make all this happen. And I would say probably collectively between all the hours that the tryout committee put in and then all the hours that the executive put in to the tryout process, I wouldn't be surprised if it's well over 60 hours combined of effort and time put into the document. So obviously my hope is that after you have the opportunity to see the process that we have for the season, there's significant changes over last year, which I feel strongly are going to be well received, and I think it'll be evident in the experience that you will all have yourselves and also your children. You know, again, I'll just end my comments by, as I always say, I always have an open door. You know, feel free anytime to reach out to myself, and if you'd like to meet in person anytime, my door is always open as well. And at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and we're all in together to ultimately make it the best possible experience that we can for the children. Not for ourselves as adults, but certainly for the children. So on that note, I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleague, Mr. Brad O'Coin, who is our VP of Competitive, to come up and go through the document. And I'll allow Brad, he can allow him to actually just mention to the group if you'd like to have questions as he goes through it, or maybe everybody hold their questions to the end, and we'll just go through the questions all at one time at the end of our presentation this evening. So again, thank you for coming out, and enjoy.
Enjoy. Hello, my name is Brad O'Coin. I'm the new VP of Competitive, and before I start, I'm just going to tell you a funny story. I actually put my name in to be on the tryout committee, and I wasn't selected. So I figured if I want to get on the committee, I better run for VP, so you know, I get to do the whole thing. Thanks, Rob. As was mentioned, I'm not going to get into a lot of details about my role as Sackville Minor. I've been here for a long time. I was treasurer for a number of years. Those of you who might see or familiar with me, I do coach. Who's this?
Yeah.
Did you lose that? I didn't do the broken. No, there we go.
Just stay close.
I've coached a number of years in Sackville Minor, and I actually do referee a lot too. So you notice I wear glasses when I read. I don't wear glasses when I referee, so that might be a reason why some people don't like me as a referee. All right, what we're here for today is this tryout process. As was mentioned, it was a ton of work. I actually came in, I think the AGM was early June, so I missed the first couple of meetings that the committee, when they met. I came in and jumped right in, and we started this process, and it was a complete revamp. And I think if you've read it, I don't know if anybody's had a chance to go through the entire document. It was just posted today. It is, for the most part, a complete revamp from the tryouts that's been done in the past. So I'm actually quite excited about it. I know there's a lot of work coming up, and this is just starting for a lot of the members here and in this position I'm in, but I'm excited about it. I'll just touch base, and we'll talk about it a little bit. I would prefer if you ask questions as we go through, rather than we get through page 2 and then 20 minutes later. I'd rather just, if you want to have a question, let's just kind of deal with it as we go through it. One of the things we are going to be doing, and I think it's going to be scheduled for Thursday night, and anyone who's put their name in for evaluators, you haven't heard from me in a while. I haven't forgotten about you. We're trying to get all this done in pre-camps and stuff, so we are going to be having an evaluator training session Thursday night. There'll be an email going out first thing tomorrow morning, so if you're on that list, and I'll talk a little bit more about why we're doing that, but there is a training session coming up for the evaluators, so we're all on the same page once the trial process starts. So I'm just going to go through this document as here. Anything that's kind of hasn't changed from last year, I'm just going to skim over. If you have a question about it, feel free to ask. I'd rather focus on the details of these significant changes we've made, and then open it up for some questions. So the mission statement, table of contents, mission statement, none of that's changed. I mean, we are here, put these on, we are here to make sure that this process is fair, transparent, and the children who are trying out for teams are placed on a team at the appropriate skill level. That diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that's something that Sackville Minor supports, and we felt it was important to put into this policy as well. And it's in the policy now. It's something that's been added, but it's been part of Sackville Minor for a couple of years now. So Evaluation software hasn't changed. We do use a program called Team Genius. And like I said, the main purpose of the competitive tryouts is to evaluate the players and place them on appropriate teams of their skill level. There's a lot of work that goes behind the Team Genius software, so I know sometimes you might be in the stands on this side and you see evaluators up here on their phones. They're not listening to music or texting their buddies. They are actually working with the software on their phone. So that they download it to the phone and they get lists, they get a code, and they get the list for that session with jersey numbers. And there's no names on it, so it's the jersey numbers and colors. And then they have to evaluate the score, so they enter the score and it updates the Genius software in real time. And then all the work gets done in the back room to come up with the scoring and the rankings for everybody. So please, if you see a group of people up in the stands with their phones, they are doing the work. They're not texting people, and they better not be anyway. So, but that's you'll see that. This is used by multiple associations across Nova Scotia. And we are getting a training session on that in this coming week as well, so we're all familiar with that. And the evaluators will be doing some work on that as well, so they're familiar with the software, so they don't arrive day one and wonder what they're looking at on their phone. So, objectives of the player evaluation: provide a fair and impartial assessment of the player's total hockey skills, includes skating, scrimmages, and exhibition game if there are any. They have a reasonable opportunity to be selected to the appropriate team based on their skill level, provide uniformity and consistency in the evaluation process, so that the players' and parents' expectations are consistent from year to year as they move through various levels of the association. This is a document that we've created, we want to last for a period of time. I know we've made a big change from last year to this year, but this is something going forward we believe. Are we going to run into some hiccups? Probably. And I'll kind of explain about the debrief process we're going to do at the end of it, but we anticipate we'll probably run into some minor issues, and we'll deal with them as we do. If there are changes that need to be made, we'll kind of look at it at the end, and we'll make any tweaks that we need to make going forward. But this, we hope, is going to be the model, the foundation for the process going forward for a number of years. We're looking to form teams to maintain balance and competitive play so they can develop and participate equitably and have fun during the season, and provide feedback to aid development, and that can be helped through the Team Genius process. Roles and responsibilities really hasn't changed. We've got the president role is more of an oversight for the whole thing. We've got VP of Operations, who's Kim Gray. She's new to the position this year, but she's been involved in minor hockey for 100 years, so almost as long as me. So Kim will be heavily involved in the process. The VP competitive role is there. We've got division coordinators at each division who help out with each specific division, handing out jerseys, making sure numbers are right. If there's little problems when people walk into the rink, we kind of deal with those problems as they happen. And then they're the liaison between the teams for their division and my role and then the executive throughout the season. So new this year is something called a tryout facilitator. This was part of the tryout process. We're going to appoint an independent facilitator for each age group, and the roles to oversee the tryout selection process for each division, and ensure the integrity of the process is maintained at all times. Coordinate the evaluators for all MA sessions. And what that means, I do the actual selection of the evaluators and the assignments, but they have to get their codes and they have to make sure they're on time and the little day-to-day details. This facilitator will do that. Collect all player evaluation scores and rankings and develop the rankings list to guide final player selection. Facilitate discussion and dialogue between members of the evaluation team to ensure players' decisions are being made in a manner consistent with the process. Support the process by acting as an independent evaluator if required. So ideally, and I'll talk about this more when we talk about evaluations, but if an evaluator doesn't show up, we have a set number of evaluators and we need someone to step in, that the tryout facilitator will be stepping in a short notice to help with that role. Notify the VP of competitive of all decisions and player movements, and retain all player evaluation information and records and confidence throughout the selection process. So very big role. It's someone that is going to be there for all sessions. One of the things that we've talked about this year is adding more dialogue in between sessions. So we don't just give a score and evaluator 1 has a 5 for somebody, and evaluator 2 has a 3, and evaluator 1 has a 3 has a 1. And then we've got this big discrepancy and we haven't had a discussion about it. So why did you pick a 5 and why did you pick a 1? We've got to find reasons why that happened. So there will be discussions in between sessions to make sure that we get more consistency with the scoring. So it could be just they saw when they watched the player, they had a tough drill, and they didn't get back to that individual again maybe, but other players saw it, and we'll have that discussion. I'm not going to tell you what the answer is going to be, obviously, because we don't know, but it'd be a case-by-case basis. But there will be discussion and dialogue amongst the evaluators, so when the scores are entered, we are confident that the scoring is what it should be based on what we see on the ice. Are there any questions with that? That is a new role, and it's very important. That's new to the association this year. They haven't been selected yet, so I can't tell you who's going to. I can tell you I'm going to be the under 13 AAA team or tryout facilitator, and I think I'm doing under 13 whole division. Tyler, is that right? Yeah. So I'm doing the under 13 division. My son is actually going under 15. And another thing that we are doing as well is, as VP, I am recusing myself from all under 15 competitive tryout process. So I'll be sitting in that corner instead of that corner. I think, Kim, you're going to take over my role as the VP competitive for that particular division. So I won't have any access to scores, any conversations with the evaluators for that particular division. So, any questions on that? The registrar's position hasn't changed. Heather Doucette's working very hard to get all of the registration numbers to us, and lists should be going out. Under 13 lists are going out tomorrow, and we're going to get all the other lists out as soon as we can this week. We're still kind of tweaking some numbers based on people wanting to change stuff, and there's a discussion behind the scenes on that. The communication team hasn't changed, so anytime you see these email and these updates to the website, we have a communications director who kind of blasts that out once we give the information. On-ice helpers and coaches, so for skill session 1, it's a skill session that, and I'll talk a little bit more about the details later, but we do have coaches on the ice who help just guide the players through the drills. The drills will be formed and the coaches will have them beforehand. We'll have a lead instructor and then helpers. We are getting away from the station-based skills, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But there will still be on-ice helpers for session 1, and it's just a matter of just helping the players make sure they're doing the proper drills, they're going the proper direction. There's no guidance, there's no feedback, it's just, you're here, you got to do the drill here, we'll demonstrate and go through the drill properly. Every player will get the exact same amount of repetitions for each particular drill, so that hasn't changed. If we believe a player, let's say a player has a bad edge and it's just they continue to have struggle, there's got to be a way that we can see that player so that the coach can maybe help with that player just to figure out a way to help with that if like kind of circumstances that come up that are out of our control. Coaches can encourage players to perform to the best of their ability. You can't share personal insight or tell a player how they're doing or make other observations. Dressing room monitors are the same. We have a 2-deep rule here in Sackville. That's a Hockey Nova Scotia rule. So the division coordinators are responsible for getting people to help with the dressing rooms. One of the things that's going to change this year, and I know it happened a little bit last year, was players were making their own line combinations in the tryout, in the dressing room. So that's not going to happen. I will be responsible for the 3 divisions I'm in charge of to make sure the line combinations are fair, because it's always, I witnessed it last year where all the buddies were on one line and there's some kid in the corner who doesn't know anybody and nobody wants to be on, they don't ask that player to be on a line and they don't feel part of it. So all the line combinations and lines, everything will be set and be given to the people running the bench, and we'll stick to that process, to those lines for the duration of that particular scrimmage. So, and then dressing room monitors to just make sure that there's no issues in the dressing room, bullying, harassment, anything inappropriate. So, evaluators, probably the nuts and bolts of this whole thing. We could have the best process in the history of hockey, and if the evaluators don't do their jobs, then it's going to break down. So this year we put a call out. It was before I took the position, but we put a call out for independent evaluators to put their name forward. I believe the list is up to 29 right now. I've gone through the list. I've identified the evaluators who I'd like to use at each division. They will all be independent of the division, and when I say independent, they're not even going to have a family member. They're not going to have a family member involved in that division, like a niece or a nephew. We're going to be completely,
keep talking. Go.
Completely independent. So that list will be going up this week because there's a training session on Thursday. So else we got here? So Sackville Minor, so they're independent, they'll be in-house. Sackville Minor evaluators cannot be, or can be non-parent coaches who have already been named to a particular level. So we do have, I think there's two divisions that, under 13 AAA is a non-parent coach. Those coaches will be involved in the evaluation process for under 13 AAA. All other potential parent coaches are not part of the evaluation process in the division that they may be coaching. They can evaluate other divisions. If you put your name down and you want to coach and you want to evaluate, that's great. Helping to evaluate does not guarantee you a position as a coach, nor does it guarantee you anything with your child's placement in a tryout. You're helping out the association, you're providing a service, and you're being compensated for it. And we do appreciate anybody who's stepping up to help out that particular role. So, we are going to strive to have the evaluators for each division be consistent for every session. We don't want to have 6 evaluators on session 1 and 6 new ones on session 2, 6 on session 3, and they're all different and the scores are all over the place. So we're going to strive to have the consistent evaluators for every session. We're going to run into some scheduling conflicts probably where someone can't make it, and we'll do the best we can. I will be involved in every session for 11, 13, and 18, and hopefully Kim will be there for all the under 15. So if there are issues, we'll certainly deal with them. General evaluators are required to attend the evaluator training session. You're going to review all the drills and skills to be observed to understand the analysis process. You review the evaluation criteria. Stay separate from the other evaluators as well as spectators. So we are going to have them sectioned off in this rink where they'll be on this side of the rink, I believe, and all the parents can sit on that side. Evaluators will confirm that they have the correct jersey numbers to evaluate. That's done through the Team Genius. We're strongly telling evaluators not to share comments or opinions with parents, players, or interested observers. And I know people know everybody, people know people, and you're going to know people. Just respect the process and respect that they're doing a job for the best job they can do, and just let them do their job. If we run into issues, that's an issue that we'll have as an executive that we'll deal with if anything comes up. And they are required to refer any comments, questions, complaints to the division coordinator, trial facilitator, and myself that we can deal with on an ongoing basis, on a real-time basis. This is annoying. Any questions on that? Yep.
Maybe just clarification. So it does state that a non-parent coach can evaluate the age group that they will be coaching in. So how does that provide an unbiased evaluator? If they
A non-parent coach can evaluate.
It states
Yep.
that they can be.
A non-parent coach, though.
Yes. But
Okay.
they're still familiar and very well known to all those kids that age group. So where does the unbiased come in for an evaluator?
Non-parent coach.
Non-parent coach has no child in the division. That's the independence.
But they have
I
an
don't-
unconscious bias.
What's that?
They have an unconscious bias because they already know the
Right.
We have.
As a non-parent, so my experience, I come from a different sport world.
Yep.
So just if I know, say, what my team was gonna look like, I wouldn't even be stepping in foot in the gym to see those tries happen. So if we don't want these coaches of these teams and these age groups to have any say in what their team's gonna look like, they will by evaluating the children in that age.
Who do we get as an evaluator then? Everybody, all the evaluators on the list know some kids in the association.
I agree, sure, but should they be evaluating the kids that they are also going to be coaching?
But you should also have the other scores of the other evaluators to counter that.
Okay, let's backtrack then. So what we're doing this year is for each session, we're gonna have 6 evaluators. So it'll be 3 evaluators for forwards, 3 evaluators for defensemen, and 3 evaluators for goalies. So 9 in total for each age group, each session. Okay? One of those evaluators, so it could be a non-parent coach. Right now, we have 1 non-parent coach that I believe would be evaluating this year. And it's at the under 13 AAA level. That's the only non-parent coach that would be evaluating that particular division. That, I don't know if that answers your question, but if that addresses your concern.
I think she's saying like, so is that non-parent coach going to be coaching the AAA team?
Yes,
Yes,
So they're evaluating the kids that they will be coaching?
Correct.
yes.
all of the kids, yes.
So essentially, they pick the kids they want.
No,
They're
No.
one.
They're one of
They're one of
six.
They're one of
six.
six, yeah.
with oversight from, at a 13 level, oversight from myself and Kim and the executive.
But you can still heavily sway the score. the way
No,
the tennis
we
was.
can't. No. Yeah, so that particular evaluator, so I'll put it this way, let's say that particular coach, we see there's a trend that a couple of players have received higher scores than the rest of the evaluators, then that's where the discussion comes in and we'll have to address that. And then if that particular non-parent coach would have to be removed because we think there's a bias, then it's a decision the executive will have to make. But one individual cannot, and I believe in this process, influence scoring.
Well, Team Genius identifies the outliers anyway, doesn't
It will, and then we'll discuss it.
it? Right.
So like I said, if this non-parent coach scores a group of a particular player, let's go one player with a score of a 5, and everyone else has them as a 2. There's an issue here, right? And that's something we have to address through the discussion. Does that help?
Yes and no.
Any other comments, questions on that particular topic? I'd rather us leave here with, we're comfortable with this than not. Yep.
I think I might have missed something, like where the coaches are like public enemy number 1 kind of thing for this stuff, so, I mean, I know you want independent evaluators, but we gotta be careful on how we address that, because there are people that put in a lot of time and effort to it, right? And
We don't, I agree,
like the TV AAA coaches, I mean, like, in the history of hockey, normally coaches have a say on picking their team, like, so, especially at that level, because numbers on a computer and what's being assessed doesn't always capture everything, right, so.
they do not,
I don't see an issue with coaches, you know,
Well,
being involved,
so-
especially if they're not involved in that division outside of like TV AAA, like, that's not really an issue.
I personally don't see it as an issue, but parent coaches will not have a say in the division they're coaching. Just, we'll get to that part in a minute. I don't know if I've addressed that, but we're not putting any parent coaches in place until the teams are selected. So I know that's a change from last year, and I think it protects the coach. I was involved in that last year. I coached under 13A. I got a text on a Thursday night, well, I run the under 13A practice Friday, and then run 2 exhibition games on the weekend, and then make the bubble picks. I was not given any sheets to score. I was not given any lists. These are the players that you can run out to the Shabakto and we can play them here. Now go pick your team. I had no other information, and I think that was unfair to the coaches to put them in that situation. I got to select the team based on what I saw in 2 exhibition games. I didn't see anything else in groups 2 and 3 at the time, because my son was in group 1 at the time. So we're trying to avoid that situation, and I think part of what the feedback I've heard is that in some areas that maybe decisions were made by these parent coaches that maybe was there influence from family, friends or something where they made selections. I don't know. I've heard that, and we're trying to avoid that because we have what's a new, I guess, a portion of this document talks about a team selection committee, and I'll talk about that later, but we're trying to take it out of the coaches. So we're great. We want you guys, we want people to coach. We trust that you're going to do a good job. One of my mandates is to actually develop a coaching program to work with the coaches this year. But you're going to be handed your team, and then we hope that you'll do a great job with the team you're handed based on what we think is the best group of players based on the evaluation process we have in place. It's not going to be perfect, but I think it's going to be better than it's been. And if everyone does their job, I think we'll be fine. So we're talking about one particular team and one particular coach at this point, and I don't see that as being a concern based on what I believe is going to be happening. So, anyone else? Any other comments about that?
So in that scenario, so in that situation there, so no family member would have the evaluating, say, TV AAA?
No. Now, if there's a conflict that I'm not aware of, then I should probably be made aware of it at some point, but I don't know if there's a conflict or not. So that's a discussion I'll have with somebody else. If there's a conflict there, then that coach may have to be removed, if there is a conflict. I'm not aware of one, but if there is, there will not be any conflicts with evaluators and the division that they're evaluating.
I'll just add a brief comment myself as well. This particular practice is not, it's not necessarily practiced with every association, but it is practiced with a lot of associations where they have same policies in place, where parent coaches don't have a say in the team because of whether it's real or perceived biases of the players that they're selecting. So it does ultimately come down to, one, it's a couple of things. It was asked by the membership that participated in our tryout committee that this be one of our policy changes. Again, it's not uncommon with other associations that have the exact same policies where it is a separate committee that actually selects the teams and the players will be on those particular teams. And it protects the coaches from this type of criticism. This decision was not taken lightly. As I mentioned at the beginning of my opportunity to speak, there's a lot of hours, tons of time that went into this, lots of debate and conversation. I guess I'll just speak for Brad and for myself is I'll ask the group to trust the process, and we can have a reconvenience after the trial process if somebody wishes as well. I met with any family that asked for a meeting after our trial process last year. I met with every single one of them. And I'll do the same thing again this year, and I know Brad will as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sure, you know, Kim and the other executives, but I'll just ask that you trust the process. There was a lot that went into this. Again, it was a recommendation that came from the individuals that were on our tryout committee. And we do feel it's the right approach for us as an association to be as fair and equitable to all the players involved in the process. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Any other questions? Move on to the tryout committee. We do have a tryout committee as in the bylaws of Sackville Minor. It consists of the president, vice president of competition, vice president of development, and division coordinators for 11, 13, 15, and 18, and 3 members at large. The tryout committee sets the process. It's weeks before the tryout. I know we're a week away from under 13 AAA. The other tryout process, or the other tryout groups start in a couple weeks, the 28th, I believe. Then tryout committee is responsible for retaining evaluators for tryouts at each level, ensure they're conducted in a fair, objective manner. We'll get into the timelines. Some of these timelines aren't exactly accurate because of where we are in the process, but we've got the Team Genius preparation, the coordinate evaluators, we're working on that. The ice has been, I think the ice has been posted, the schedule for ice has been posted, so we're good on that. And we're going to review the process. Well, here we are tonight. Coaches interviews, if you haven't heard, I know we have a list out. The division coordinators are compiling the list for each of their divisions, and we're going to start looking at that list this week. So you'll hear from me shortly. We're posted to try to document to the website. It was done today. Name non-parent coaches confirmed and posted to the website. We'll be talking about that this week. Tryout process review and evaluators on ice help in classroom. That is going to be Thursday night. So what we're doing Thursday night is Chris Donnelly, the coach for the men's hockey team at Dalhousie, is coming in. We're going to meet up here. We're going to have all the evaluators come in. He's going to run a 45-minute classroom session, and we're going to talk about the different skills we're looking for. So skating, puck handling, passing, shooting, what we want to see, what we should be looking for. And then we're going to actually sit up here. There's an under 15 group 2 and 3 are going to be on the ice for a pre-camp. It's not an evaluation. It's a training session, and we're going to pick a player out. There's no conflict with anybody in the room. We're just going to ask them to watch that player and just up here amongst ourselves, let's give a score and see what we're dealing with. And get some ideas of, well, why did you rank this player a 5 and a 2, and just kind of hash that out amongst the group. We'll try to do that for a couple of skill sessions, and then we're going to have a Q&A with everybody, just to make sure we're on the same page. We have a detailed list of skills for each, detailed list of what we're looking for each particular skill. It was in this document, but it's more of a technical thing for evaluators to know. The other thing that I'm going to promote amongst the evaluators is not just, and I'm big on this, it's how to play the game the right way. So we all know the player who wants to take the puck, toe drag it up the ice, score 3 goals, and it looks great. They haven't made a pass in 3 scrimmages. They don't back check, they don't work hard, and they got a bad attitude. Sometimes that player who scores 3 or 4 goals gets the highest ranking, and the player who's trying to make the first pass, work hard, back check, 45-second shifts, coachability, all that stuff that makes a complete hockey player, we want to emphasize that as well. I'm not taking away the skill from the player who's making great plays, but it's not the only skill we're going to focus on. We're going to try to focus on looking for the different types of skills, making the pass, and you don't have to make the first pass all the time, but you have to make the attempt. You have to have your head up. You have to play position. If you're a defenseman, you shouldn't be up inside by the other team's net the entire game. You should be able to play your position. So those are the types of things we're going to try to emphasize with the evaluators as well, and it becomes part of the scoring. Any questions on that?
Excuse me?
Yep.
Did you say that list would be posted, like the skills?
No.
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 Is it something you consider sharing? Like I would like to just share with my son, because I can tell him as many things as I want, but it helps for him to hear from some other source what skills,
I don't know the reason why we couldn't post something on the website. Yeah, we can post, this is what we're looking, yeah, we can post something. We got that document you're gonna send me, that we pulled out of here. We can post something on the website of the skills we're looking for, and we'll work on that. Back to the September timelines. So the jersey handout for under 13 AAA is going to be Tuesday night. There'll be something posted tomorrow on that. Oh, it's already posted? Perfect. I was in a ref all day, so. The under 13 AAA tryouts begin next Sunday. September 27th at 4 p.m. We're going to finalize the under 13 AAA roster. On September 28th, competitive tryouts for all evaluation begin for all other divisions. And then on September 30th, under 15 competitive tryouts begin. And we had to wait an extra 2 days or a day for that because under major bantam or under 15 major has their final tournament in Antigonish that Sunday, 29th. And if there are players released from that, we didn't want to start and have players miss tryouts, so we're starting on the 30th. October, team selection, name and parent coaches, finalize all team rosters by the following deadlines, or dates. October, under 11 on October 7th by 8 p.m., under 13 by 1 p.m. on October 13th, under 15 by 4 p.m. on October 12th, under 18 by 4 p.m. on October 13th. I felt it was important we put dates and times. I know how stressful it is when you know it's the final tryout, you go home and you hit refresh for the next 5 hours. And you just keep hitting refresh, and then all of a sudden a text goes through Sackville, and it's like the list posted, where are you? These are the times. It's not going to be a minute earlier, and it won't be a minute later. It'll be posted on that. And
that's a big problem.
Yeah, don't say that.
I'm promising that unless we run into technical difficulties, that's going to be done. I think that's important. So, like I said, I'm one of those people. I hit refresh all the time. So, it's important. It's important that and it's stressful. I know it's stressful for everybody. It's stressful for you as parents. It's stressful for the kids, and everyone wants to know what that. And it's not going to be at 11 o'clock at night. Kids are in bed and they wake up to school and they have to go to school the next morning. And the first thing they find out before they go to school is that they're on a team that they didn't make a team they thought. And they got to go face their friends, and it's tough. So by doing it this way, I think we're hopefully alleviate some of that stress from everybody. The next section is who can participate. Hasn't really changed. You have to be in good standing in Sackville Minor. If you do not make an under 13 AAA team, you can ask for a release to try out somewhere else. There's a formal policy or process that has to follow. You first have to register with your home association and then ask for the release. None of that's really changed, has it, Rob? I don't think for that, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. Next is the excused absences, injury, illness, and compassionate. This has been revamped. A lot of it is common sense, so sometimes you might have a player who is entering tryouts with an injury. that they may not participate, be able to participate with a doctor's note. So we have this policy in place now. If you have that situation, we talk about you have to request the excused absence for competitive tryouts, and you have to send me an email with the details of it. I need as much detail as possible, and you will have to provide a doctor's note to state that your particular child is not eligible to participate in any of the tryouts or has to miss a certain segment of them or whatever the situation is. I will be tracking the excused absences on a spreadsheet on Google Workspace apparently. The request will be considered and actioned by 3 people. There's myself or the delegate if I have a conflict, and the appropriate division coordinator or delegate if there's a conflict, and 1 Sackville Minor member board at large. We will make a decision whether we're going to reject or accept whether it's excused or unexcused. So types of illness or injury, like we just talked about, if there's an injury or illness, must be accompanied by a medical note from a medical professional, and they're listed. For a player to be eligible to play on a competitive team, they have to be, the medical professional has to kind of make a determination if they're eligible by December 1st based on the injury. If they're going to be back on January 31st, the decision has to be made whether they can play competitive hockey at that point. Because you're taking a spot away from somebody. We're not going to carry extra players on a particular competitive team. So if there is a situation, we do need some information on when the return. So broken wrists and broken bones and stuff like that, typically there's a time frame with those. The big one is if you have a head injury with a concussion where you might not know. So those will be kind of on a case-by-case basis. For player safety, any player is granted an excused absence on the basis of illness or injury must submit the medical note. To be eligible to return for Sackville Minor sanctioned hockey, I need to get the note, and if the player has already been assigned to a team, the team's head coach and manager should also be included. There are compassionate reasons as well. We understand there are certain activities or family emergencies that may occur, and we will take them into consideration, obviously. Trying out for other sports and activities. Absences from Sackville Minor tryout process for other sports or activities may not be approved. It depends what the activity is. If it's for a national or provincial competition, obviously we'll take that into consideration. If it's to go play on the school volleyball team and you want to miss a competitive tryout, then maybe that's a different scenario that we'll have to talk about. Obviously family tragedies, attendance at a provincial national event or specific religious holidays are considered as well. It's critical that parents and guardians notify Sackville Minor as soon as possible about the absence of a player. So if a player gets injured during the tryouts, we need to know that as well. So obviously go to the division coordinator at that session and just let them know that there's an injury and kind of give us an update, and then just kind of keep us informed if you've gone to the hospital and what the status is for the rest of the tryout process. You'll all have the schedule, you'll see the schedule, so you'll know when the next session is. And it's important that we kind of stay up to date on that. So we're aware of what's going on, because if we don't know and then your son or daughter doesn't show up for the next session and we're not made aware, then it's tough to make a determination where the players should play. So unexcused absences such as school trips, sports activities, other extracurricular, family gatherings will result in lateral movement in the flow chart, and I will explain that when we get to the flow charts. Excused absence player placement. So we have situations where a player doesn't complete the tryout or doesn't try out at all. This is where this is the section that deals with that. VP Competitive will engage with Sackville Minor coaches who are familiar with the player. Consider the following points. Has the player been able to participate in any session so far? What information was provided? What team did they play on last year? What's been the player development throughout the past season? How do they compare to their peers, teammates at the end of the season? Is there a similarly skilled player that can be agreed upon for those most familiar with the player's recent performance? If the player is new to Sackville Minor, I will have to then seek out 3 references from where they came from to gather information. So this is obviously a case-by-case basis. We have a player who hasn't participated, and we think that there's a whole bunch of factors that are going to come into this, where they end up being placed. And we'll have a committee that does that. So I can apparently assign a committee, so I can assign one of our coaches to strike an ad hoc committee to assist with evaluating any individual request. We can reach out to other coaches for feedback only, just to find out where the player was. May also employ the use of undisclosed like-skilled players agreed upon with the committee, and to which the absent player may be pegged throughout any missed session of the competitive tryout process to further assess final placements. The player in question is being considered for placement in a higher level team in any division. The player ought to be forecasted as being a top half of the team in question as follows: one of the top 4 forwards, top 3 defenders, and top goaltender. The requested player is deemed to be comparable to many other players in the competitive process. The player with the excused absent may be moved to a lower team. That's, again, it's a case-by-case basis. Other contributing factors for final placement may include the player's anticipated return to play timeline. Because this is a competitive process, these decisions often lead to disappointment for the absent player. They're not placed where they felt they should be, or disappointment on the part of another player who is displaced by the player with the excused absence. It's extremely difficult to justify placing a player with an excused absence at a higher level when that player has been absent and unable to display their skills during the competitive process. It's tough. I know they're terrible decisions to have to be part of, but it is a competitive trial process, and we will use all information available amongst various independent people to try to make the proper decision for everybody involved. That's probably the best way I can say that. Hopefully it doesn't, we don't have many of those situations. Again, a complete effort will be made to ensure fairness throughout the process. If we find out that someone has been abusing this excused absent policy, for example, they say they have an excused absence, but they really haven't, it's not a legitimate excuse, and we've done the investigation and we find out that it's all of the facts dictate that it's not and it shouldn't have been an excuse, the player will be automatically released from the competitive trial process and assigned to the recreation process. And it will go to the Sackville Miners Ombudsman for further consideration. Harassment or threats related to this process will not be tolerated and will be referred to the Board of Directors for disciplinary action. Any questions on that? That was kind of lengthy. Again, it's case by case, and we will make sure we will put the effort in to make sure we make the best possible decision for everyone involved based on the facts of the particular case.
Hey Brad, how do we deal with the outside tryouts? I'm just curious, like after tryouts that are over, let's say we have a transfer. Where does
In or out?
the kids transfer in.
We have
Let's say
transfer
let's say it's
in.
military family, just gets posted.
After the process, so this happened last year, I believe, and the player was assigned to under 15 rec. And I reffed a lot of those games, and the player, someone can correct me if I wasn't here last year in this position, so that particular player played rec and obviously probably didn't belong there. But I don't believe there's a process in place to put that particular player in that situation on a competitive team at that point.
That should be considered under what you just went through, like you have the player, I think the player we're talking about last year couldn't get here until tryouts had competed, and he was there the day rec evaluation started. Right, so there was no mechanism for him to be able to try it. But I think if you consider that and take in all the factors that you just listed out for, say, a player.
If it's that close to the trial process, yes.
Yeah.
If it's.
But if you're transferring in at November 30th.
Yeah.
Yeah, your world's apart. You can't. How are you gonna displace a kid?
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
Does that answer? I mean, if someone arrives due to some kind of a transfer and it's October, so when we finish the 12th, it's Thanksgiving weekend, and we're just in the process of finalizing, well, again, case by case, we'll have to look at it and see what we can do. That's tough. That's at that point because we had people go through the process. So, but I think it's kind of listed here what the process is, and we'll follow it.
Once the teams are selected and the rosters are in place, we're not voting to get off a team for some reason. They'll just have to tough it out for a season and make the tryouts the following season.
Any other questions? Yeah?
I have a question. I know you know my situation.
Yep.
So how does so he's second year U15.
Yep.
So how does now the non-returning policy, non-existing policy now impact injured players that cannot do tryouts? Beyond what's listed there, because it says each player has to earn their
Yeah,
spot.
so it'd be, so there's, that then falls under the medical part of it as well. So it'll be the same process that's in place that will, in
So
his,
could an injured player technically fall down a level or more?
technically, yes, but it's a case-by-case basis, and we'll follow this whole process that we just talked about to make sure that all the information is gathered and make the proper decision for everyone involved. But, so, the point of, I guess, where's the returning player policy at on this sheet?
It's
down
page
further.
20. Yeah, there the end.
Oh, I'm on here, page 11.
Yeah. We can come to it at that.
We'll come to that at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
All right, fair enough. I'm gonna get through some of this other stuff fairly quickly. So just so you know, when you try out, you have to pay the competitive tryout fee. And you're responsible for team budgets and all that. I don't wanna get into a lot, that hasn't changed. The player check-in and jersey assignment, none of that's changed. We will do our best to give you a jersey that fits. We're not giving you a jersey because it's your favorite number. We're not worried about that. It'll fit. You will hold on to that jersey through the entire process. It's important that you bring your jersey to the trial process. And I know that sometimes you might forget it. If you forget your jersey and you can't get it here in time to go on the ice, you have to track down the division coordinator and let us know so we can get a jersey on you and get it into the Team Genius software. That is the biggest problem. We need the jersey number in the software so we can identify the player on the ice, so we can do a proper evaluation of the player. It happens, and we just need to know that so we can make arrangements. You cannot trade jerseys, anything like that. Yeah, you're stuck with the number you're going to get, and they were numbered from 1 to like 100 or something. They're all reversible, so when the list go out, you'll know which jersey, what color you need to wear when you go on the ice for that particular session. Let's skip the page.
Position selection.
Okay, the process can be slow, get here early. We have volunteers that are doing that job for us. Just be patient. You'll get your jersey and we'll make sure it's in the software. Position selection. So new this season is a requirement. You have to identify your position before tryouts. Last year in under 11, that wasn't the case. You didn't have to select your position, and this year you have to select, and you cannot change your position. You can change your position up to, for all the divisions other than under 13 AAA, you can change it up to Sunday, September 22nd. So if you want to make that decision, you have to make it by then. You have to notify the registrar that you're doing a position switch. So then we can update our list, because the problem is I'm going to start creating lists and we're going to balance groups for session 1, and then we got to balance teams when we go forward. And we want to make sure that we have people in the proper position, so we evaluate them by their position. Session 1 is broken up into positions. So there's a forward session, a defense session, and a goalie session. So it's very important that you're at the right session.
So Brad,
Yep.
so let's say we've got a situation where a guy tries out as a forward.
Yep.
Doesn't score well as a forward.
Okay.
Can he be offered a position as a D?
Not once Travis starts.
Okay.
If you think that there's a situation like that you may, if there's a family that thinks, well, maybe he's going to be a better he or she's a better defenseman and try out for defense. I know under 11 our defense numbers are low. If that helps anybody. I'm maybe not supposed to say that, but under 11 defense numbers are low. So I will address that later when I talk about teams, because it is an important issue we got to address. So to the point, we can no longer flip players later on. If you make a team as a defenseman, you play that year as a defenseman. That's now, I don't know, as far as coaches go later in the season, if a player's struggling and that's a coaching decision later. You make a team as a defenseman, you play the defenseman, you make it as a forward, you play as a forward.
Sorry,
Yep.
I have another question. So U15, we both teams very, I think we're like U2 ended up with only, you actually might remember as well, with only M10. We don't need 5D because one did the high school team, which was late, and another opted not to continue playing. is there talk, like what if that occurrence was to happen early on, that, it worked out great last year actually, having a D player. But Sunday, unfortunately, we had great attendance for our team, but having only 5D.
Why wasn't a defenseman placed on that team after that happened? I would think, personally, I would think we're gonna put a defenseman on that team to fill the roster out, but I don't know why that wouldn't have happened, but I can't speak to that.
I think what I heard was just because in rec, the numbers were lower to pull up.
The under 15 numbers are good this year, so I don't think that'll be an issue. I would anticipate, I'll just speak personally, if that situation occurs, we finalize the team and a player for some reason gets moved somewhere else and there's an opening, I would think we will move a defenseman up to that team and play with 6 defensemen on that team, or 8, 9 forwards, and no reason not to.
It's not, it actually worked out well for.
I think it's great, 5 defense is great.
Yeah.
But I think we should fill teams, full rosters on every team. But that's what the discussion we'll have if it's case by case. Player placement. So players will be notified of their initial groupings and their standings throughout the tryout and evaluation process through the Sackville Arena website. We are not posting names this year. We are posting your jersey and your number. So just be aware of what your kid's number and color is. We're not posting names. There's some feedback we've been given is there at certain times when players, are we doing names for tryouts or just for teams?
First session, we're doing
Names.
names, and then we're going.
And then we're going numbers for every session after. So some player will go into group 1 on the second session and their buddy goes into group 3 and they go to school and there's conversations. We're trying to avoid that. You're gonna find out anyway, but by names, it's obvious. Most people don't even know, probably don't know their numbers right away. So we're trying to avoid that and just go with numbers and colors only for sessions after group 1. So when we do the group listings this week, you'll be assigned to a group and it'll be your name and jersey number, or not jersey number yet, it'll be name, what group you're in. And after that, it'll be just numbers only. After each session, you should regularly check the website just for updates. As you know, sometimes the sessions can go from, we'll do 3 in the morning and 3 later in the afternoon. We got to make some switches. You need to start hitting refresh again, so we will do that change as quickly as possible. After each session, players will be regrouped based on scoring from the evaluators. We'll post them as quickly as we can, so you're ready for the next session using the software. It's important to know the player moving into a higher group does not guarantee a player on a particular team. And I'll talk a little bit more about the flow chart a little bit later when we get there. Other factors, we're going to be talking about skill, attitude, hockey IQ, compete level, all those things that I talked about earlier. That's part of the evaluation process. And then we'll post the final team list to the Sackville website, and then we'll contact the coach who gets assigned to that particular team. Player evaluation criteria, technical skills doesn't change, skating, so that's position specific. So defensemen skate backwards a lot more than forwards do, so we're assessing the skills of the defenseman differently than a forward, and goalies are a whole other different level of skills. So passing, shooting, puck control, tactical and scrimmage, use of hockey skills, hockey IQ, compete level, attitude, coachability. None of that's changed. That's basic hockey, fundamentals. Scoring and evaluation system, there was a big change here. We were evaluating based on scoring, 1 to 5, but we're going to be using 0.5 as a basis point. So last year we only used whole numbers, and I think what happened was a lot of people in the middle, there's not a lot of variation. So we're trying to add the 0.5s to kind of spread the groups out more and give us a better idea to create these. When you get to the selection team, when you finalize the teams, they're called, I'll call it the bubble. The bubble group, we got 6 forwards going for 3 spots. We're trying to make sure that the range there is a little more separated than, we don't want 9 kids going for 3 spots because the scoring just didn't break out enough. So we are trying to use 0.5s, and we can see there 1's a poor, up to a 5 is an outstanding. Evaluation scores are tabulated after each session, determine the player's ranking. In the event of ties, scores are very close. The evaluation team will discuss. So this is part of the discussion part I talked about earlier. In prior years, it was probably just a score given and you walked out to the next session. We are going to have some conversations. I will be involved in 11, 13, and 18, heavily involved in the discussions to make sure every kid is at least discussed and we're confident that the scoring is what we think it should be. Evaluation scoring should be placed based on a player's performance during the process. Consideration of past performance should only be permitted when the evaluation team encounters a situation where two or more players are scored similarly, and additional insight may be helpful in making a decision, and that'll be on a case-by-case basis, or if they're unable to participate due to injury, illness, or compassion, which we've already talked about. We will refer to input from player's previous coach in comparison to the same player, and we'll try to make the best decision as possible. The tryout process. So the under 13 process, Circle A process, is a completely different process than because it's a standalone team, which not everyone signs up to tryout for. So under 11, 13, other categories in 13 and 15. And I'm going to say now, under 18 is not mentioned here. Under 18, it was an oversight on my part. I'll take responsibility for it. Under 18 process is going to be run exactly the same as everyone else. Flow chart, rankings, skill sessions, and we'll talk about that when we get there, but under 18 falls under this. It was brought to my attention shortly before the meeting that we didn't have it in certain sections of this, but we didn't forget about under 18. Session 1, it's a skill evaluation, so forwards will be grouped together and defense will be grouped together, and then there's a goalie session separate. We're trying to keep it between 20 and 30 players on the ice at a time. We had a situation under 15 when we looked at the groups. We had 35 defense in one session, so we had to get some more ice to put 17 or 18 on the ice at a time. We can't evaluate 35 players on the ice at one time, so we are trying to keep it lower numbers as much as we can. All session 1 groupings are balanced. So if you're assigned to group 1, doesn't mean a thing. If you're assigned to group 2, it doesn't mean a thing. It just means that's your session. We are balancing the groups, so there could be I'll use under 13 outside of AAA. There could be AA, A, B, and rec players in that particular group 1, and group 2, and group 3. If you're in group 1, it doesn't mean anything other than that's where you ended up. It doesn't mean you're advanced higher than anybody. Everyone starts at square one. When they start the trial process, everyone is equal until they step on the ice and the evaluation process starts. There's no weighted scores. There's no, where did you play last year? You're in group 1, and that'll determine how things go. Everyone starts square one on day 1. So if you're in group 3 always had this negative connotation because the way it was labeled in the past. For the first session, that's not the case. You're in group 3, it just means that's where you've gone based on the draft, not a draft, but how the placement went. And you could be with a AA, AB, it could be anybody. Are there any questions on that? That's important that's a big change from last year.
What about players who are released from like U15 AAA? Are they also?
They're spread out amongst the whole group. Yep, they're not going to be stuck we're putting group 1, they'll be spread out amongst the whole group. Yep. Where am I at? Players will be evaluated. We talked about the skating, puck handling, and passing. Players will then be assigned from groups for session 2. So after session 1, which is a skill-based session, so I mentioned earlier, we are getting away from the 4 stations as part of the evaluation. We're doing more full ice drills, so you get a better look at the player in more of a hockey drill rather than you're skating around the top of the circle and pivoting and stuff. We're trying to get a more complete skill evaluation for all the skills we're trying to evaluate here. So the drills have not been finalized yet. We're working on that over the next couple of days. So and that AAA is the same thing. AAA is going to have we're breaking up. I'll do AAA when we get there. Everyone else, session 1 is a skill session. Everything after session 1 is scrimmages. So at that point, based on your scoring after session 1, so session 1 we do a score. You get a score for whatever your skill, whatever your evaluation is, and you get placed in group 1, 2, or 3. You're broken up into teams. One sec. You're broken up into teams for the scrimmages. There'll be 2 referees on the ice. There'll be a timekeeper. We're going to have a scrimmage. Your score after session 1 does not carry forward. So you start over again on session 1, 2, and 3. So you scored a 5 in group 1, session 1, sorry, and you move to session 2, everyone starts in group 1, exact same spot again. Everyone in group 2 is the exact same spot, everyone in group 3 is the exact same spot. And then you get a score on that group amongst your peers based on session 1. I see some eyes glossing over. Make sense? Last year's scores accumulated, and if you got behind the 8 ball and you had a bad session, it was tough to catch up, and then you threw the weighted scores in. And if you were you started in group 3 on session 1, and you had a bad session, you had a hard time getting up to a team that you thought maybe you should make. This way, we're eliminating that. The other advantage of this, let's say you have a terrible session. You're sick. You don't tell anybody, and you're flat out. You don't have it that day. The point of this new process is you could score a 1 that day. It's not going to kill you the rest of the process. You can then slide across, and then you can have a great session and move up, and a great session and move up. And once we see the flow chart, you'll see how that works. So 1 bad session, or 1 session that you miss because of an excused absence, does not hamper you the entire process. You can still get to the AA or a higher level team if you have a couple of good sessions. At some point, you have to have a good session. That's the tryout process. But there's a little bit of room in here if you had a bad day, you can still recover from it.
So is there still waiting within Team Genius?
Nope.
But that's the benefit of Team Genius.
Team Genius has lots of benefits. Waiting is not.
That's a big one, big part of it.
Waiting how? We're not, there's no weighted scores.
So essentially, if you don't have anything weighted, and you move your first group, your top tier, let's say your A kids, if we're talking about, or AA kids, and you move those top kids together into a group to scrimmage against Shabaka's AA kids.
We're not doing that though. We're not having a scrimmage against Shabaka.
So, just internal scrimmages.
Yeah.
So we're gonna,
Is that 5-on-5?
Yep. Continue.
so,
1 sec. Actually, there was someone had a hand up back there. I'll get to you in a second. Continue first. Sorry. Yeah.
so when you weight it, so if anyone, so I'm a little confused.
So
Who's in each group then?
So why don't we get to the flow chart, we'll go through that in detail. I think they'll explain it once we get to the flow chart. You'll see once the flow chart, have you looked at the flow chart?
No.
Okay, that'll answer your question when we get there. No, there's is it Alex? What's that?
This is the first session.
You have your own separate session as a goalie. You have a session 1, goalies only. That's evaluated by goalie evaluators. And there'll be shooters on the ice. So forwards have a session 1, defense have a session 1, and goalies have their separate session 1. There was a couple hands back here. Yeah, you were next, and I think.
The initial groupings, how are you going to do that? Are you going to go by where they played the year before?
No, I'm balancing everything. So I'm going to I could have AA, A, B, Rec in every group from both. If there's under 11, under 13, if that's a division, it's going to be balanced. So there could be a AA player with a Rec player in group 1, state session 1.
And
There's no. Go ahead.
So I was just gonna say that speaks to Brad's comment earlier about like the benefit of the process this year is everybody's on equal footing. Nobody's starting off in a particular group based on where they played last year. So everybody's being treated fairly and equally right from the get-go. All the groups will be balanced with players from different divisions and levels that they played last year within those divisions to create, fair and equitable grouping for each child. And the beauty with this, you'll see with the flow charts, is that the opportunity there is only to move up. So if you go out in a session and you prove yourself and you're evaluated, accordingly, you'll move up, right? You can't move down. You can only move up in the process. So
Well, how can you only move up?
No, you move across and up.
Just like somebody.
Move across and up.
Yeah,
Let's
it's just
go
because
through the flow
everybody's on
chart.
equal.
We get there.
Everybody starts at the same level, and then you work your way up.
There's no advantage or disadvantage to start the trial process. And when you see the flow chart, when we start it, you can move across or up. Across or up. Some people are gonna move right across. And that's part of the process. Not everyone can move up. You can't have everybody who starts, who end up at group 3, eventually in group 1. So there will be some players who don't move at all, but you do not move down. So if you move from, let's say you start in group 3, the session 1, you're assigned to group 3. And you then have a great session, you move to group 2, and you have a bad session in group 2, you're not going to group 3. You're staying across to group 2. But we will see the flow, see the flow chart when we get to that one. So there's 2 more
I'm just confirming that when you talk about weighted scores, you mean like in the past, if you were in group 3, you couldn't score higher than a 60, right? A 60.
we're not, that's out, we're not doing that.
Okay, so that's where I think the confusion is that you're saying now it all just starts even playing field, nobody's getting like.
There's no advantage or disadvantage to anybody at the start of the trial process.
Because once you were in 3, like, you were in 3.
If you were in a 3 to start, and you scored a 5, you got credit for a 3 because it was 60% of the 5. And yeah, you were the top of group 3, but someone in group 2, they had to score almost a 1 or a 2 to make that switch. So we're not even moving, there's no even movement down anymore. So that's out, completely out. Yep.
Who's coming up with the drills for the skill session? Is it the trial committee? And also, who's going to have access to these drills?
The coaches, the on-ice helpers will have access to the drills, and Tyler Doyle, who I'm going to introduce shortly, and myself and the trial committee will be doing the drills. And probably John Hubley will be involved as the VP of development. Yeah, that's right, yeah. And so maybe your question is are we going to post the drills beforehand? No.
They were posted last year. Yeah, I'm just wondering who's going to have access to maybe potentially rent the ice.
Nobody.
Have their kids go out.
Nope.
Okay.
One of the questions we talked about was should the pre-camps have, do the drills, the tryout drills on beforehand? And we said no to that because there'd be an advantage for those who signed up and those who didn't, so no. Nobody's gonna have access to let the coaches on the ice, and it'll be explained at the board, and that'll be the first time everybody, might not be the first time you see the drill, it's the first time you're gonna be aware of the drill that you're gonna be doing, so there's no advantage beforehand to prep for it. Is that it? All the questions there? Where am I? So inter-squad evaluations, again, we're going to be breaking up the teams into balanced teams. We're going to balance those teams as best we can. Again, we're looking at evaluation, like it's not just the player who's going to score the highlight reel goal. We're trying to find a complete hockey player who's moving the puck, work hard, all those skills we talked about. I don't want to spend too much time on that. On-ice protocol. So we are developing the drills for the session 1, and then like I said, everything else is scrimmages. Again, there'll be 2 referees on the ice and a timekeeper to keep it balanced. There will be on ice, I'm not going to call them coaches, there will be bench coordinators to just make sure everybody's flowing through the bench and make sure the shifts are somewhat even. Sometimes you get a player out there wants to do a 2-minute shift and someone else is doing a 40-second shift. That person will be in charge of making sure that we're trying to keep that as timely as possible. So, just quickly go through this. Goalie evaluation. So we have goalie session will be specifically, there's a specific goalie evaluation, we have specific goalie evaluators. Craig McDonald is going to be doing the on-ice portion of the drills to organize that, and we'll have evaluators. The goalies have a separate whole section of skills that they need to work on or they need to be evaluated on, which are listed here: basic skating, position-specific movements, positional save movements, rebound, control, recovery, tactical, transitional. And then the next table is a chart here. This is based on beginner, intermediate, and advanced at different levels. We do have qualified goalie instructors and we'll have qualified shooters. So in the past, sometimes we would have went out and gotten maybe younger kids, like under 15 kids to shoot on under 11s. We're gonna get adults to be shooting. We don't need kids banging the pucks off boards while the goalies are trying to be evaluated properly. So we don't want that distraction, so we want adults hopefully not doing the same thing, on the ice, taking direction. The other thing we talked about, was brought up in the tryout committee, was adults should be able to shoot specifically to a spot where we're trying to evaluate a skill. So if a goalie's trying to do a glove save, the 5 shots they get on the glove save shouldn't hit the blocker, right? Sometimes kids shoot, it's the blocker, and then the skill's not being evaluated because the kid hasn't hit the glove yet. So hopefully the adults who are doing the shooting will be able to hit the glove and the blocker, the skill that's being evaluated. So, any questions on that? We did talk about potentially saves being part of the process, but again, one of the things, saves are part of the process. Let me backtrack. You're not getting a score for a save, but the evaluation part of it will be, you get 10 shots and you make 10 saves and they're really good saves, and that's part of the whole combination of the evaluation. We were worried that if we did a score, if you make 30 saves, you get 0.1 points or whatever it is, that a player who gets 30 shots has an advantage against the goalie, maybe gets 5 because we didn't have the teams balanced best we could. So we're not doing that, but saves are an important part of the evaluation process. Did I say that right? I don't think I missed anything of that. Goalie skill evaluations, the association should conduct separate sessions. We talked about, they have their own session to provide insight into the abilities of the goalies that may not always be possible during games. As you know, in a game, the goalie be standing down this end and the play's up in the end for 3 minutes and the goalie's down here and there's not a lot of action, whereas players typically are around the puck or more so than obviously a goalie is. So this goalie session is meant to get a good evaluation of the goalies. Now, the flow charts. Lots of bolts of this.
Brad, before you get into the
Yeah.
flow chart, just a quick question, really not for yourself, but anyone who was part of the discussions. I'm just curious about going back a little bit about the picking up positions in the U11.
Yep.
So I know that's a little bit of a change because before it
Big
was
change.
sometimes based on like your top 15 players and with the second year players, majority of the time they do have an idea of what position they want to play. But I think of my son who's coming up from U9 who played 4-on-4 half ice games last year, and when I asked him a couple weeks ago, what position do you want to play, he said, I don't care. Or I don't know. So for those kids coming up who don't really know where they want to play, so I'm just curious as to the discussion in the committee. I don't know, or I don't have an opinion on which is which.
So we had lengthy discussion on that, and the way that the kind of where it went, and it was actually discussed at the executive level as well. I think, Brian, you were part of this discussion a little bit at the executive level. We understand that at the under 9 where you play half ice, you don't play by position. But, and I think towards the end of the year, there were some full ice games where positional play became a little more important. And we felt that with spring hockey, and I know not everyone plays spring hockey and summer hockey, I get that. But we felt that there was probably a possibility that a lot of players were exposed to the position specific at that age level, and they would know that they would have a preference. So that's kind of where the discussion went. And the concern was if we didn't, and a team gets 15 forwards, forward type players, and now you got to develop 6 defense out of that.
Right,
and then
half an hour ago you said that there was no defense that were signing up for U11, so obviously this is an issue.
Yep.
Nobody's signing up for the defense because nobody knows they want to, and then you can't flip-flop players either, so now we're not getting very many defense showing up for the tryouts. Whoever checks the box is just going to make the top team.
No, there's 26 defensemen. There's 12 on there, yeah. We're short, if we want to run 5 under 11 teams, we're short 4 defensemen. No, 4, 5, we're short 4 defensemen right now. So if you, there's no right answer. If you believe your son or daughter wants to try play defense, there are openings on defense to play competitive hockey. It's based on the numbers.
Right, because nobody knows what position they want to play yet at U11.
A lot of people do.
What
Not a lot.
Canada say about it?
I believe Hockey Canada's gone to that it's position specific. I can't, don't quote me on that, but I haven't checked it, but we'll double check.
Because the idea is that in U9 and U11 are both still considered development.
Everything's development, but We can open it up for discussion. So I guess we can open it for discussion. We're not making a change on the policy, but.
I guess I'll pipe up here, because I guess my kid's probably the one that we're talking about. So he tried out as a forward, made D last year, and ended up being one of the best defensemen on the team. So I don't 100% agree with that in 11.
That they should be position specific? Okay, duly noted.
So that's, just to piggyback on that, there is, depending on where you play hockey, whatever province, state, country, different people do different things. Not everybody gets into position specific until you're U13. But to really affect or correct what we're talking about here, you have to decide whether you're gonna make a wholesale change from the bottom up in terms of when you start teaching kids to be defensemen. If that's gonna start at U11, then you've gotta start separating the kids. But if you're gonna rotate them all through until you hit U13 and then get into a specific position, that's when you make that change. But the association will have to make that decision, how to, and work that from the bottom up. You're not gonna fix that by changing a rule or two in the trial process.
Did you wanna
Well,
address something?
I just want to say, part of that decision, does have a bit to do with developing defense within our association as well. Connected to that, I don't know, I'm not sure if this has actually gone out or not. I probably should know that, but I've got a lot coming at me. But one of the other initiatives that I wanted to bring in this year was ice times that were specific to teach that position of defense. So we are introducing that this season as well for our membership. For any players that are interested in learning that position, we're going to provide extra development for them specific to that defensive position, similar to what we've had done for our goaltenders here in Sackville. And I think it's paid dividends because we have a wealth of goaltending now within our association. I noticed Bedford put a notification out that they're basically looking for goalies from other associations. They've got a bit of a shortage there. And one of the deficiencies, one of our responsibilities and commitments that we have as an association is to provide the best possible development for our players as well. And I saw that as something that was lacking for our membership and for our players specifically to that position. And to some of the comments, a lot of the kids coming up out of U9, they haven't really had maybe the coaching that they should have had. Maybe they're not sure if they want to play that position or not. So I wanted to make sure that we had proper instruction for them this coming season, that for those players that choose to play that position this year, they're going to have that opportunity to have some specialized training on the ice with specialized coaches for that defensive position. And the intent is to hopefully develop better defense for us through the association, because if the longer we wait to have children identified for a particular position, the further we are behind the 8 ball. So if we can develop players early, coming up from U9 and into U11, it's just going to allow us, over time to put ourselves, for the players to be in a better position themselves, and also for us as an association. So that's kind of a bit of the mindset behind it. Now, does this mean that we maybe do the same thing again next year? Well, maybe not. Maybe we'll go back if we find that this year that it didn't work out. But for the purposes of this year's tryout policy, we did want the players to choose whether they were going to try out for defense or forward. From experience playing, I think every child should play a season playing defense and play a season playing forward if they do go defense. I honestly believe it is going to be beneficial for the development of all the players, even if they just do the 1 year playing defense, and maybe next year they decide to play a different position as well. Somebody had a question in the back there?
Rob,
Yeah.
are you going to do that for all age groups?
Well, we're going to do it depending. I think ice right now we have U11, U13 for the defensive sessions, I believe, if I recall.
You could probably throw the U9s in with the U11s if it's not.
Yeah, I think we're gonna look at the second year U9s that have, because some kids in U9 know that they want to play defense. Like I know some person that are friends of mine. Their child's coming up to U11. They played U9 and they made that decision throughout the year last year that they want to play defense. So we will offer that again. Yes, sir.
Just for some added context too, I mean, the year my son played his first year U11, which was a few years ago, I was the coach. And I was just given, back then, my 15 players. And I was lucky my son was a defenseman, and I only had one other child who identified as defenseman that year. So every game I would show up and I'd say, all right, we need 3 more defensemen. Who wants to be a defenseman? I had nobody, all the forwards wouldn't put up their hands. So I had 2 defensemen. And then I would say, okay, well, it's going to be you and you this time, and next time it's going to be you and you. As the season progressed, as I made that schedule, the you and you, I would point out and say, you're going to be defense next week. They would be mysteriously sick and they wouldn't show up. They wouldn't want to play. And then I get in situations where, okay, then you're going to play defense this time, and they would start to cry in the dressing room. Going, guys, I just need you to step up here, be for the team, do what you can do here to help us out. And they wouldn't play defense. So what I ended up doing is I had 3 guys who would step up and be a defenseman, and everybody else would be a forward that day. So what ended up happening is my defensemen were getting 15, 16, 17 minutes of ice time, and my forwards were only getting 4 or 5 minutes of ice time. And then I had parents come and ask me how come my son isn't getting enough ice time. It's like, well, I'm trying to even it out. So there's kind of a balance there between good and bad for sure.
So to Aaron's point, I think if we're gonna make this change within U11, you gotta be identified, right? We talked about inclusivity, right? So, and Brad, you brought up spring hockey. The kids that are playing in the higher levels, most of them do play extra hockey outside of Sackville Minor. But in the spirit of inclusivity, and the people that don't play spring hockey or extra hockey for whatever reason, I think as an organization or as a group, you know, and kind of to Eric's point a little bit, I think in U9 when those full ice games come and now they're extended to play more games, I think we have to formalize it in a way that every kid has to play every position and it's actually tracked. Because that way there, you've got some kids out there that know their forwards, and then they dominate. Like the kids that are in U9, that there's a handful of them and they really dominate, right? They got big personalities, there's all kinds of things that go on, and they always play those positions. And it may not give a child who really wants to play, who's been playing mostly D or, you know, maybe doesn't have the confidence or whatever else, to really step up and play that other position, right? So I think if we're gonna make this change in U11, we have to do something formally in the U9 group to prepare those children to come into U11. Otherwise, we're not doing ourselves any good.
That's a fair point, and so just quickly, what I'll say about this whole, like from starting for pre-camps right to the end of tryouts, the objective, or the goal at the end of it is I'm going to be looking for feedback. So I want feedback on everything that we started this week with pre-camps right to the end of tryouts, good, the bad, and the ugly. Send me the email of what we did well, what we didn't do well, what we could improve, and a point like that is an excellent point. We can talk to our under 9 VP and see if there's something we can build in, and maybe there's something we can look at this year as well. So absolutely, there's something we should be looking at for sure. I can tell you this very quickly: the discussion amongst that particular topic was it took a lot of time. We had a lot of opinions on it. We spent a lot of time on it. It was not a unanimous vote. We went back and forth, the pros, the cons, and then we brought it. The committee made a decision to do it this way. And we brought it to the executive. We had the exact same type of conversation, and we made the decision that we felt was best in the association's interest at this point, in the kids' interest, that this would be the way we would go this year. If we find out this is a total flop and it doesn't work, for whatever reason, we will revisit it and we'll talk to our under 9 VP and figure out what's the best way to do that. 100%.
Yeah, really, like at the U9 level, the coaches there should be, they should be cycling the players through.
That's a fine and dandy thing to say they should be doing it, right? But we gotta formalize it. If we want it to happen, it has to be formalized, because you'll get a coach who gets a rock star on the board. And all of a sudden, that kid never plays D, because spring hockey, everywhere else he goes, he's a rock star there too. And then that's taking away an opportunity for a kid that might want to play defense, never to get up there and play, right? So if we're gonna implement change here, to Eric's point, it has to start at the bottom and go all the way to the top. Otherwise, it'll never work. We can't start halfway through.
No, I agree. Yeah. That's
I can't comment on every team, but my child was U9 last year and got to play all 5 positions for a skater. Right wing, left wing, center, right defense.
Full ice?
Full ice games.
Okay.
Got to play in every spot.
How many full ice games does under 9 do right now towards the end?
12.
Okay. It's not enough. I get it's not enough. It's better than the 3 that my kid did, so. 6 the year before. So they're getting better that way, but the point is well taken, and we'll certainly look at that.
Yeah, I think that, like, all great points, and, you know, I think collectively, I mean, we're all in this together, right? And, you know, I think that, you know, the defensive sessions is a bit of a start that might help that process. A great point as well, like with regards to, you know, having something, a policy in place for U9. I know my son was in U9 last year, and he played every position as well, outside of goalie. But that's a great point that you make for sure, and that's definitely a takeaway for us as a group. And this is what this is all about, just collaboration, conversation, and ultimately hopefully making everything better. And that's, you know, obviously Ryan's wheelhouse for sure, so we can have some conversations on that, no question. But hopefully the defensive sessions where it'll be open for players in U9 as well, if they want to participate. Basically it's going to be a sign up. So if there is interest, they can sign up and they can go out and experience it, and hopefully maybe they'll hate defense and maybe they'll love it. And if they love it, that's just hopefully going to produce some more defense for the association, similar to what we did with our goaltenders.
Any other questions on that before we get into the flow chart? All right, so if those who looked at the document today, we have this flow chart up on the board, and I am going to actually ask Tyler Doyle to come up, who is kind of the mastermind behind the flow chart. He was heavily involved he's a Sackville minor guy through and through, played throughout the entire association. He's been helping us with development, and he was a big part of the tryout committee, and kind of was the one who presented the flow chart, how this works. So I'm just going to turn it over to him, and I'm going to grab another coffee.
Was it that bad?
No, I just need more.
Bring the box down there.
Just bring your box. Rob, can you blow up that?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So lucky me, I get to do this in front of you. So I was involved with this model in Halifax. Halifax Hawks uses this model for 15 years now, and they've had great success with their trial process and the flow of everyone and how it works. So as Brad stated, the yellow boxes here are our level points. So this is the first session for everyone where they're put into their groups based on forward and defense, and we have our skill positions there with the goalies having their own. After that, based on those, that will split them up into groups for games. So the top forwards will go into Group A, the middle forwards will go into Group B, and then the top defense will go into Group A as well. As Brad stated, there's no moving down with this. So there's no coming down. You're evaluated on that game and that game only. So if you perform in that game, you have the ability to move up. If you don't perform in the top number of players, you'll just slide over to the right and compete with the next group that is moving up to meet you. So there's no downward movement. So this is just for illustration purposes. We know what the number of registers, we have to make adjustments to this chart, but what we had to work with when we created this document was just this flow chart as to give you an idea of how it works. So as you look at this, you're able to see what ice session your child is going to, where they can move, and then how they can get up to make that top team, or the process that they have in order to get through to that next stage. So we can see it's all sliding here. The top players from each session will move up, and then everyone else will slide across and join from the bottom group. I don't know, to me, some of these are pretty self-explanatory. You can kind of see the movement, the numbers that move up. But is there any kind of questions or concerns or where you would like me to focus on with this?
So how many kids move up in the first group? So let's say we have after everyone's on a level playing field.
Yeah.
In the first.
In the yellow ones, yeah.
Okay, the forwards all go to Group A.
No, so the top 20 forwards will go to Group A. The bottom 20 forwards for this document will go to Group B. So this would be a forward session, and this would be a forward session. So the top 20 from both groups combined will go to Group A and compete in an inter-squad game. The bottom 20 forwards will go into the Group B inter-squad game.
So if they can't move down.
Yep.
Once they're there, they're there. How do you?
No, so when they have the inter-squad game, and I wish I could say this, they're going to have this inter-squad game right here. when the players are in there. The top players from this inter-squad game will move up into that group. The rest from this group will slide over. The top players.
How many? So there's 20 in that group?
Yeah.
We don't know yet until we see the numbers.
Yeah. So this is just for illustration. Yeah. So based on the number of registrants, that will change how many will be in that group.
Not based on their scores, but based on the number of registrants.
Well, we can't say there's 20 players going into that group because we don't know how many players have signed up for U11 yet. Or we do, but we haven't
We haven't mapped out the model
mapped
yet.
out the model
This is
completely.
illustration only, based on.
So we're gonna have, in the yellow blocks here, we're gonna have all of our forwards in one group. And if we'll have up to 30 kids in a group, as Brad stated. And then we'll have 3 different forward groups if we have 60 forwards, for example. And then the top forwards will move over into Group A. The second middle group will move to Group B, and then if there's a Group C, they would move over to there as well. And then the top players from Group A will move up into that A11 game at the very top. The rest of those players will slide over into A7. And they will be met by the top players from this group in A6. So they will come up into here, the rest of the players will slide over. So it's a sliding, more of a sliding scale where if you are the top player in each group, that's where you will move up to the group above. But you will not be, if you were the bottom ranked player in one of those sessions, you will not move down. You will just be met, and you will have to earn your spot to move up by being the best player in that game.
So then the top ranked players from A7 will also move up to A11?
Yeah, exactly. And then the rest will slide over. So we can see you can start in that bottom group and you have multiple chances to still get up to make that U11 AA team.
Right, so if people are moving up, then you must be parking kids pretty early on.
I wouldn't call it parking, but you're moving up until, so you move up from here into that game, and then the top kids will move up into that AA game. You can see the AA.
So you make it that AA game while you're on that team then, because you can't move down again.
Yeah, that would be the case.
Right, so parking might not be the right word, but you
But
can
if you
pretty
think
early
about
on
it,
get
if you look at the numbers, so A6, A5, A6, and we've got A7, A8, so this game doesn't take place right away.
Right.
We gotta build that group up through these 2 particular groups, and actually the third group until we get to that part. So we're starting this box here, A11, starts out small. And then we build it up based on what happens in these sections here to move up. It will be based, so we have to map this all out for the divisions based on our numbers. So this is obviously illustration. Once we have the numbers, that's kind of what I gotta do this week, is we will take this model, put our numbers in, and then create the flow chart of how we want to do this. So I can't tell you we're going to move 20 up right away.
When you create it?
What's that?
We see that map when you create it.
Yeah, you'll put it on the website.
Yeah, we can do that.
So yeah, you'll be able to see exactly the flow of where your tryout will go from one game. If they don't make it up, they'll slide it over, and the path that they have in order to get through to that top team or whatever team it may be.
And then what about for goalies moving across? So we talk about players, is it the same for goalies?
Yes.
They have the same number?
Yeah, absolutely.
So move up until 8, 14.
Yeah, goalies would be the same. Obviously, we have to make sure we have enough goalies to fill out the rest of the flow chart to have games later on. So it might be,
Basically just transition over,
yeah,
fill out the spots,
and then everyone might be moved up.
and then everybody goes.
Yeah,
wherever,
yeah. Yep.
So once you have your set number that you know is gonna be plugged in your model, will you know at that point how many kids you're taking from each of those groups to move up into?
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, so
That'll be set, that won't be based on scores, that'll be a set.
that'll be a set number, but the people that move up will be based on their scores from that game.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So that's where you're evaluated on that game. And then when we get to the decisions on the teams, that's where the greater conversation will be happening. So you could be a person that moved across and moved up, and then you might have had a bad game that last game. But we can have a discussion, the facilitator with Brad and all the other evaluators is, they're that maybe the 10th forward, but they were there early on, they had a great tryout process. are they within that point range that we can put them on that team just because they had one bad game today? So that's gonna be the job of the facilitator, to make sure those conversations happen for all of the kids, to make sure that it's a fair and equal process. How long? Oh, sorry.
So if you move from, if you're in session A, you
Yeah.
move to session A in green,
Yeah,
and then you move up to the session A of the brown.
yeah.
Are you playing less games than the kids playing in the brown and the blue to get up to that section?
Yeah, there could be less games, yeah. So we're giving as much opportunity. So what this does is it takes the top kids from the group, puts them up, and gives more opportunity to evaluate against the middle, or the middle grouping. So they're competing against each other more often in order to earn their spot. So then we'll have reference to say, Johnny and Timmy played against each other in this grouping. Johnny and Timmy played against each other here. How did they do against each other? Did one have a better game consistently, and help us make decisions on who can make what team? So it's all about the middle grouping of kids playing more games against each other, to be evaluated against each other. And that might mean they have to play 5 games, and the top person in the top group might only play 3 games. But they can still get to the same process, or same spot, and make that double A team.
Was another, someone else had their hand up, and then I think you had a question? Anyone else, someone back here? No? Yep, oh, right here first, I think.
So, I guess, kind of looking through it, so obviously ice is limited, so like how long are all these games? And then is there potential that kids are playing more often on the same day than other kids?
The schedule's already set.
Yeah.
Right, so
So
I know the ice is.
they're hour-long games.
Okay.
Is the answer
And
to
the
that
ice has
one.
been set, so we just gotta figure out where it all slots in, but you're not gonna be playing, I think there's one day
There's,
Two.
U11 plays twice.
twice in the same day, but we'll have plenty of time.
So I guess, so I already kind of looked at this model
Yeah.
before I came. So if we were to take that model and apply it to the ice that we currently have for U11, you could play in game A5,
Yeah.
move laterally, play in game A7, because that would be the third ice time that would have to take place. So that could happen at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m.
No,
No.
Why?
because we're gonna schedule it so it doesn't.
It'll
We
be,
control the
it'll be
schedule.
maybe in the afternoon.
Look in the afternoon, we control
Okay.
the schedule.
Yeah.
That's what I was just
Yes,
asking.
yeah, it's not gonna be back to back.
We're not gonna do back to
It might
back.
be 2 in the same
That's
day
not
versus
fair.
morning, afternoon.
There's
Right,
3
okay.
hours
That's fine.
between
Yeah.
each one.
Yeah.
Actually, there's 5, no, there's 3 hours.
I can tell you based on you're an under 11 parent,
Yeah.
I can tell you under 11 numbers are high, that this is not gonna be, that's not gonna be an issue. Where we're gonna we'll have a back-to-back situation. We wouldn't do that, but numbers are high enough, that won't be an issue.
Just two clarifications, so that top, peachy colored box, like, just because you're up there doesn't mean that you're making that. the
Up here?
team, right? Yeah.
That top one does, but this one, you have the ability to slide all the way over. So if you get above this box here and up there, that is where we'll have a balancing game, where your 30 AA players will be in there, and we'll have a game to balance the 2 AA teams.
Okay, so you're only gonna put enough people in that top box? That would
Yes,
make
there's not gonna be
it
31 kids, there's
That's
only gonna
correct.
be your
Okay.
30 forwards, or sorry, 18 forwards, 12 D into goals.
And in all of these inter-squad games for the evaluators, will there still be like forward evaluators, defense
Yes.
evaluators, and
Yes.
goalie evaluators?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Lenny?
No, sorry, I just went forward because there's too many forwards.
Oh, yeah.
I just saw you put your hand up.
So the way I understand it is, you're kind of building up the group A, you keep taking a few top
Exactly.
players,
Yep.
earning their spot out there until you've got the full set of group A of everybody that's
Absolutely.
trying to top. So once that high-level group is formed, how many sessions do they get to be evaluated on? Is it just one, or is there multiple sessions for that group A?
Sorry, so when we're starting at group 5, you're talking about?
Well,
What box are you in?
Up top.
Up
Each
top?
one
Yeah, say
once you
the
get
top
there.
one. Once
So you've
brought
had
in,
session
you-
1, you've had a scrimmage, and then you're gonna have a balancing game.
Yeah.
You made it.
If you made it.
Yeah.
Once there you go. Once you're here, you've made AA.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a balancing game here. Here, you've not made double A, you could slide across all the way if you don't have the session that you hope. But once you make that top beige box, I guess, that you're on double A.
Yeah,
To balance
and
the
that's
game
what
out.
will be divided into teams to make sure they're fair.
Any other questions on that?
I know this is a completely new and different process. I
So-
can tell you,
Go ahead.
I can tell you from my experiences with this the last 7 years, I did evaluations in Halifax, and it has gone very smoothly. The biggest thing is the conversation after the fact. I know Brad is very mindful of that and keeping that very consistent for the groups. But there's been, this chart has been in process for, again, probably 15 years in Halifax, and they've had no issues with their evaluations in terms of how this works.
I'm just gonna say thank you, because I think we've needed this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it looks good, and I think it does alleviate that backlash kids all receive at school, because you know what happens, and yeah, just thank you.
Yeah, so this is, and then again, it helps for parents too, right? Because they're able to see, oh, my kid's placing this, what's the path, where's the next session, and where can we go from there? So.
Any more questions for Tyler? Thanks, Tyler. So what I would encourage you to do this week is go through this more. If you have questions about this specific, these flow charts, about the process, don't ask me about numbers yet, because I don't know them yet, but if you have an issue of questions about the process, please email me. No, I'll do that separately. I'll do this separately. If you have questions about the process, please email me this week. We are having a second session on this again on Saturday, so you can, by all means, you can show up again and ask more questions once you get a chance to see this in a little more detail. I know it came out at noon today or whatever. It's a lot of information and it's brand new. So it is something that if you have any more information or questions, please send me an email. Yeah.
One simple question. So, judging by the numbers, you don't know the numbers plugged into these yet. So, you saying that there's going to be 2 AA at U11? That's not necessarily true.
I didn't get there yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
It is true.
It is true.
We're over.
I didn't get there yet.
Yeah, we're over the 110.
Okay, so whatever the flow chart is, that's what it would be.
Yeah, and I would say these numbers probably actually aren't all that far off.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but
Yeah.
basically the yellow, everybody's on a level playing field. The groups are all mixed. There's rec players with A players, there's novice advancing players coming up with U9 rec players, intermediate players, like it's a whole mix in those first groups. So everybody's on a fair playing field. Unlike what we had last year where you were placed in a group based on where you played the previous season. This year, everybody has an equal chance on a level playing field. The reality is a lot of kids, some kids develop a lot over the course of the end of the season in April. And we want to give every child a fair opportunity and not put them, I don't want to say pigeonhole, but put them, kind of jam them in a spot based on, maybe what transpired last year in the world. So I think this is a great enhancement for us as an association. I think it's a fair approach. The reality is, nothing's perfect. And unfortunately, in the game of hockey, there's only 17 positions on a team. So inevitably, there's always going to be disappointment. There's always going to be, that aspect of disappointment. Personally myself, I'd love to see every child be on the teams they want to be. But that's just unfortunately not realistic. That's not the game of hockey. One of the great things about hockey is it does teach a lot of life lessons, right? Like I apply for jobs that might not get hired. So I go and I work harder and maybe I try and apply again and maybe I eventually get the job. Like, there's a lot of great life lessons that come from the game of hockey. I think this is the fairest approach. We spend a lot of time with lots of dialogue and debate and conversation around this process and this flow chart. The only opportunity for every child through this process is to move up. And so, that's what Tryouts is. The tryout is an opportunity for an individual to go out, participate in a session, and prove, that they belong, maybe to move up to the next level. And so if your child goes out and they have a great performance, it'll be reflected in this chart, and they will move up accordingly. To Brad's comment earlier, you know, maybe in you know, this second session or third session, maybe they didn't have a great session. But then, so they just moved laterally, but in that session, they're gonna have the opportunity to move back up again. And I think this is the fairest, most equitable way that we can do it. Again, nothing's perfect, but I really believe that, you know, going into our trial process this season, with everything that we have in place, that, you know, ultimately the goal is to make this as fair and equitable for every child as we possibly can. Yes, Steve?
In a circumstance where an underager is trying out in this model, how do you finish top 3?
Well, they, in that particular instance, they're gonna have to score top 3 for their particular position.
Right, but at which point they get the scores after the first session, everybody's at 0, so an individual can score top 3 then. But after that, it's just gameplay. Like, can you still finish top 3 if you made it to game number 4 of the top group? Or do you have to be top 3 of each game? Like how do you finish top 3?
Yeah, and in that case, they'd have to come out of Group A, because there's gonna be more than 3 forwards that are gonna be moving out of Group A, up into the
Right.
A11.
Right, so you have to move up the very first time.
You'd have to move up the first time.
And then from after game 11, you'd have to move up to A16 immediately again.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can finish
Yeah,
the top 3.
No, they'll slide across. So you can see they slide from A11 to A13.
Well, they could
They
slide
finish
across,
top
yeah.
13.
Yeah.
If you miss out one day, then you can never finish top 3.
No,
by
but-
missing one.
Sorry, no, yeah, go ahead, Brady.
Well, I'm just
You
thinking
can't slide
here,
over
you
there.
could slide across here and you have a bad day here. You could slide across to here and have a great day to move up.
And you can still finish top 3.
At that point, yes, but if you slide across to here, then no.
Okay?
No, but how do you, so, let's say he slides across and then he makes it to that
A16.
the top group, whatever that number,
Yeah.
basically whatever number it is. If he has to score top 3 forwards because of Hockey Nova Scotia's rules, how do we determine that he's the top 3 in that top group? He's there in the team, somewhere in the group.
It's gonna be based on scoring, evaluation. We have one.
Is it the scoring of that A16 game?
It's the total.
What game?
Well, that A16 is just splitting them up. You've already made AA there. You're just picking who's going
I
to
don't
be
understand how the scoring
No.
part comes in.
Top 3,
Top
A11.
3.
There's one child.
You have to be top 3 in A5 and A11.
Right,
Yeah.
you have to be top 3 in each one of those.
Yeah.
You have to be top 3 each time.
Yeah.
A5,
A5, A11, A16.
Yeah.
And then at any point,
A16.
A16 is just balancing.
A16 is just a balance.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd have to be out of A5 and then out of A11.
right. And if not out of A11, then it's over.
You'd have to be top 3 until you made the team.
Interesting. Okay.
Any other questions on that before we do the AAA?
It's a unique situation for sure.
It is.
doesn't
I
happen
was
very
curious
often.
because like there's not a whole lot of scoring going on here.
There's all scoring.
And then
There's a lot of scoring. We are tracking scores. Every
Scoring
evaluation, there is a
session
scoring.
is
Yes,
Right?
we are.
Each got sessions separate, so
Yeah,
therefore
so it's on there.
the cumulative score of being top 3 doesn't really exist anymore.
It's cumulative after the yellow, isn't it?
Yes.
No.
No.
The reset.
Well, sorry.
No,
Each session resets, yeah, but they.
Exactly.
Every score, every session.
Right, yeah.
We good on that right now? We're gonna move to AAA? I'm gonna bring the AAA thing up. So under 13 AAA is mentioned as a standalone team, it's a provincial team, or provincial league, sorry, and, so we tried to fit this model, new model into a format here that's similar. So what we've decided to do, again, a lot of discussion about this, this is the policy we came up with. It's gonna consist of 3 phases. So what we're gonna do is phase 1, we're gonna break up the groups into 3 balanced teams. So I'm doing that listing tomorrow. So each team 1, 2, and 3 will consist of a range of players from every skill level, whatever they played last year. AAA, AA, A, B at the under 13, under 11 age groups. Under 11s moving up, and then the under 13s that are returning. So each team will be as balanced as we can make them. Phase 1, you're gonna have a team practice, or a skill evaluation, where you go out and you skill, evaluate skills, and there'll be evaluators watching that session. Group, at this point, we're then, second session, these 3 boxes here are gonna be a round robin scrimmage. So team A will play team B, team C will play Team B and Team A will play Team C that night. They'll be evaluated in those scrimmages. Everyone will keep the same thing, and so we'll move on to the third box. We'll make this same thing here. The round robin scrimmage. At that point, we're gonna make releases to the rest of the under 13 process. We're gonna move on to phase 2. We'll cut it down to 2 balanced teams, and we'll have 2 scrimmages at that point, with the 2 teams go playing against one another. At that point, there'll be some more releases made. We'll be down to what we'll call probably the bubble group, where we've got 12, is it gonna be 12, 8, and 3. 12 forwards, 8 defense, and 3 goalies. At this session here, there'll be an evaluation of that practice. There'll be a coach that'll run them through a practice, and they'll be evaluated. And at the under 13 AAA level, we will have 2 exhibition games that are confirmed. Tuesday, the 24th in Halifax at 7:30 against Chebucto, and Thursday, the 26th at 7:30 at the arena here against Chebucto. And exhibition games will be evaluated as well. Final releases will be made, and the team will be posted based on the roster at that point, based on the evaluation. Again, made by the team selection committee that was talked about earlier. Any comments on the under 13 AAA process?
Those final releases will then have to go through the whole.
Under third, so your release from under 13 AAA, there's a lot of people kids trying out for under 13 AAA. Those players will have been released to the rest of the under 13 tryout, and they start on session 1 with the new model at that time, 13 AA, A, and B. And they start over with 0 with everybody else.
Are all the tryouts for AAA done before?
Yes.
Before this?
Yep, the final exhibition game's on the 26th. We'll finalize the team, I think, that night, and the under 13 sessions start on the Saturday, so we do have a day in between to give those players who got released. I know it's disappointing, give them a day to kind of regroup, and then we'll start the sessions. And they will be pushed, and I mentioned earlier, those players will be spread out through those session 1 like everybody else. They won't be just all placed in one group. They'll be spread out amongst the 3 groups for session 1. First question was down here.
So after the yellow group, just to clarify, so if you have group A, group B, and C, are those kids staying in those group A's with green columns too, or are you reevaluating them and switching them into different groups for green columns?
The only way we would switch the groups would be if we found out that I didn't do a great job of balancing teams based on scores. If we get out here and there's a team that's just, for whatever reason, it happens and it's 10-0, we don't want to have a second 10-0 game on this one here. So we might make some player movements inside the teams to balance the games to make it more competitive, not to release players.
Sorry, but between yellow and green, is there any shifting of groupings? Like you have players 1 to 10 in group A?
No, it's sad. So once we get here, we're going to...
You're not, are you switching?
No, sorry.
groups?
So,
I thought you
sorry, no, we're not. So from here to here, no, the teams are the same for the first session. So I'm creating the teams tomorrow. There'll be team 1, team 2, and team 3. They will then have each session 1, 2, and 3, and then they will play the scrimmages here as the team that was here. And then if there's an imbalance in the games, we may have to switch a player or 2 if we feel it's for competitive balance for the trial process. Yep.
Has there a change been made there at the very last exhibition game, the blue, where those final releases are in some way guaranteed to seats in AA? They're not.
Nope.
They get last year.
No, they're 0.
Guaranteed.
They start off with, there's no advantage by trying out for AAA that you're guaranteed a AA spot.
To make it all the way to the end, there's no advantage.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. You start out on the rest of the under 13 tryout like everyone else. Any questions on that?
If somebody makes it to the last cut and
Yep.
then released, they decide to exercise their release and go to a different association tryout.
Yes.
They're no longer guaranteed a spot on the AA team. That's correct.
So they
Last
would.
year, if you left the association tryout somewhere else, you would still have a spot to go to on the AA team.
Because what happens is Cole Harbour and Eastern,
They need players.
Chance,
They need players.
their tryouts are after hours, So theoretically, what could happen is if a player gets released here, they could be held to the end of their tryouts, which will still be in that tryout, while ours start.
And not only that, they'll have to balance trying out for our AA team if they still want to play AA here, and scheduling around another association's AAA tryouts. I mean, they'll be doing 2 tryouts at the same time.
Excuse the absence policy.
But then that's where you would file like the.
Excused absence policy.
Whatever.
That would fall, right now, I would envision that falling under the excused absence policy. And then we would have to go through the process of the excused absence. I honestly don't know what the East Hants tryout dates are. They've actually contacted us about exhibition games, so I think they're very close to what we are as far as timing. At the AAA level, because it's a provincial league, there's a tournament, I believe, early in October, that everyone needs to have their teams finalized by a certain date. And I believe that we're all very close to being on the timeline. Because Hockey Nova Scotia are setting the dates for the 28th to start the rest of the tryouts. So I believe that they would like all the associations to have their AAA done by then. So I don't know how the player movement will work at this point, because I don't know what the other associations are doing, so.
They all have to be ready to start for the Jordan Board.
Which is when, Thanksgiving.
I think what I'm
We don't
getting
have
before
before Thanksgiving this year.
Yeah, those are actual league, regular season games.
That's the start of league play for AAA.
Yeah, I think you've.
So I think what I'm driving at though is that at the very end of the process, you can have a player that gets
Leaves,
cut,
yep.
right? And then they now have to choose between trying out for Sackville AA or trying out for different associations AAA.
So ultimately, they want to play
There's a
AAA.
possibility that if they don't make that AAA,
Yep.
then they get relegated to recreation.
No, it'll be under the excused absence policy, and we'll look at it as a case by case, as a specific case.
The AA tryouts will still be ongoing by the time the other associations have their AAA tryouts completed anyway.
Right.
So the individuals wouldn't miss the entire AA tryout.
Anyone else? Just want to wrap, there's a couple of minor points here I want to talk about, and then I'll open up for any more questions if there are. So returning player policy, we don't really have one anymore, whereas in the past, if you played on a certain team, there was some talk that you were guaranteed that team, a spot on that team, if you were a returning player. Well, again, a hotly debated topic. We feel, we had a subcommittee on this. We feel all players should be treated equally and evaluated equally, and they must earn their position in accordance with the tryout policies that have been identified and we talked about tonight.
Sort of on
We're on returning player policy. Yeah, I think you're on, gotta go down.
One page over.
Just up a bit, returning player policy. Again, if we're gonna have situations where we're gonna have bubble players, and it'll be, again, the team selection committee will then take all the information of those players on the bubble. So you could have a returning player on a bubble versus a new player on the bubble. The process will be the same for everyone. It'll be the team selection committee will then discuss, look at scores and all the things we've talked about in the process to make the decision of which player is going to play where. So I'm not going to sit here, you're not guaranteed your spot because you played there last year, you have to earn it. If you get in a situation where you're in a bubble and you're with another player, then the team selection committee will make the decision using a bunch of factors that we've talked about already.
So Brad, how will that be communicated to a U9 kid who played advanced, who's 7 or 8 years old, and say, you're gonna go play on developing now?
U9 has a different policy.
Yeah,
U9, this is not U9.
Okay, let's talk about U11. So you got an 11-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Just turned 11, not overly mature. So now you got a kid who, when we talk about and I have no problem with this, so our mission statement, Sackville Minor, to provide a hockey program that promotes and instills the importance of teamwork, sportsmanship, leadership, respect, and community volunteerism to ensure a positive environment that will nurture every player's love of the game. Steer our youth through their formative years in order to develop fine young adults who will contribute to their community after their playing days are over. So the problem that I have with this is that you're going to take a young person, maybe not overly mature, maybe not a great support network at home, And you're gonna say to them, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, and we're gonna say to them, you know what, you're good enough last year, but you're not good enough now. And I understand this, and everyone's gonna say, hey, that's life, that's this, right? But at the end of the day, it's fine for a bunch of adults in a room to say, hey, that's life, that's it. But you tell an 11-year-old kid to say, hey, you're not good enough now, but you were good enough last year, and then you want him to keep the love of the game, may or may not have the support network at home, right? Then the kid hates himself, hates life, doesn't want to come to the rink, not motivated anymore, right? So I think we're making a huge mistake here when we talk about how we're treating our young kids. We have a huge problem with mental health in our schools. We have a huge problem with mental health in people's houses, right? And what we're doing here is we're going to contribute to issues with kids' mental health.
Okay, let me think about that for a second.
I'm just gonna put another spin on it, I disagree. I think this is a better place for us to be. The reason why is because all too often the kids get used to, well, I'm here. And the kid that's trying to come up, what do you say to that kid? Right, so if I have a kid I'm working with at a B or an A level, and they're working hard to achieve something better, and a kid that's at double or triple A who's stagnant, who just says, I don't care, I'm here. What do we do for the other kid? There has to be an incentive to get to the top spot, and if you're gonna get there, you gotta work.
And as children get older, they're not fair. Like, you have to take your licks and deal with the good and the bad.
And that's not I know the point you're saying, and I love the hat, but,
I teach my kids the same thing.
no, I'm not saying you don't.
I'm looking at the bigger picture here.
We all are, I think.
We have a huge issue in our society.
Look, I agree. One second. It's, the exact same thing can happen, that your situation that you're talking about can happen to the other kid on the other side, that you had the exact same, so you could say, yes, you didn't earn your spot because you were there, but what do you tell a kid who should have earned, or you think earned the spot based on scores, but you can't play or you've got to go to the lower level? It's the two-way street, and there's no right answer, other than the process will play itself out, and we'll have the evaluators, and the team selection committee will make the best decision possible for everyone involved. And I know we're not gonna please everybody, we're gonna do the best we can. But it's a two-way street on both sides of it. If your situation, I agree, and the situation made on this side of the room is the exact same on the other side. So this is the policy that we came up with, that was debated, and we can talk about it the next year when we have a debrief. At this point, I mean, we're not here to make changes to this, it's more about education and information, and we'll see how this goes, and then we can, if there's an issue we have to deal with going forward, we'll deal with it.
Brad, I
Yep.
just wanted to say, I actually commend Sackville Arena for doing this, because it's not only within hockey that this exists, it's within many sports. And at some point, it needs to change, that the top kids, because some kids peak early on, some kids develop late, and unfortunately, it will be a rough year probably for some children, and it's unfortunate, but I think we can't just say the kids that are at the top team are gonna have mental health issues. I think we do need to look at the broader spectrum of all children, and some children that might have had a disadvantage of being put on, a team that they should have been on or whatnot. So I truly support this. In general, it actually should be happening in every sport, and yes, so.
And I don't have a problem with it at as the kids mature and get a little bit older, where my concern is really at the U11 level. I think if you're trying out for U13 or U13 AAA, it's a highly competitive league, you fight for your spot every year. I don't have a problem with that, but where my problem is where you have a really young child that doesn't necessarily have the coping mechanisms, doesn't have the strong family support network at home, all that sort of stuff at a young age.
I don't disagree. I think at the under 11 level, you're probably talking a lot of kids are in that situation anyway. We have 140 kids under 11 age group, whatever it is, trying out for competitive hockey. A lot of them don't have that. Some of them do, some of them don't as well. There's probably more than just a couple, right? So it's, again, I certainly appreciate the point. it's something we will look at, and if there are issues that we have to deal with, we will deal with them the best we can. So it's,
Well, and I think with all the changes that were made, and good points on both sides, with all the changes that are made in order to try to make the process as, I guess, quote unquote, fair as it can be, if you leave that policy in place where you made the team you made last year, then you're throwing everything out the window.
that's part of it. The other argument that was talked about was, and the example was used, was if you have, and I'm gonna rephrase it this way, and I don't mean to offend anybody, if I do, I apologize. But so if you have an age group that is not, in one particular year, is low numbers and isn't overly strong skill-wise, but the group coming up is large numbers and there's a lot of skill, and then you transition that in, there could be those players under the lower level, it could be any level, I'm not talking just under 11, I'm talking every level, that could move up and supplant the player just because of circumstance. And to say to that player that was returning that you're on this team because you were here last year, I don't think is the right message. I think earning your spot and competing and battling, and hopefully we don't have to deal with it. I hope we don't have to deal with this. But if we do, we have a policy in place, we have a selection committee in place that will look at all factors and will make the best decision possible for every kid involved on your side of your argument and on your side of the argument.
I don't necessarily disagree, right? But I think if we got a kid that's coming and saying, is mailing it in and not putting any effort in because they were there last year, I think that's a totally different conversation, right? So, but if you got a kid that's out there and,
And if that's the case, and in your example, if that child is actually out there and putting their effort in and doing that, that will be a factor that's a part of this process. I promise you it will.
Okay, well, that's fair.
It's part of it,
Okay, that's fine.
right? So, I can't promise where they're gonna end up, I promise it'll be looked at, it'll be part of the process. Any other questions on that? Appeals process, Rob mentioned earlier he's got an open door policy. I will have an open door policy as well. If you have comments, questions, or concerns about anything, please reach out to me, prefer via email first rather than not in the ring all the time, but if you want to reach out and you have any questions or comments. We don't accept appeals on scoring. We're not going to divulge scores of anybody's score. If you want to talk about your particular child and the evaluation, I will certainly, at the end of the trial, will have that conversation with you, with whoever wants to take part in that. I will no problem with that. The appeals process is meant for situations where there's a breakdown in the process. If for some reason, I think the example is used here, the jersey number's not right, they weren't in the Team Genius software, they didn't get an evaluation score because of that, and there was an oversight. Hopefully we have controls in place that won't happen. If that's the case, then you can appeal that, and we will look at it, and we have a policy in place for that. But if you're not, just one sec, if you're not happy about your child's score because you think he deserved a 5 and 6 evaluators have him at a 3, that's not up for debate. We can certainly meet afterwards and have a discussion about how it went and stuff, and I certainly will meet with you and have conversations with you about that at the appropriate time and place, and through the appropriate communication. If anyone approaches any executive or any coordinator or any evaluator and starts ranting and raving about stuff, this conversation won't be had at that time. We just want to be fair, respect the process, respect the evaluators and the job they're doing. If we find that there's issues with that, we will deal with it as an executive. I do promise you that. I am fully invested in this program, in this process, and we will do the best we can for the kids, and we'll see where it all shakes out. Question?
Yeah, last year, and the year prior to that, I know the evaluators were allowed to write comments and things in Team Genius, and if a parent had came forward afterwards and asked for those comments, we would give those comments to them so they could use that to help the players develop. Is that something that's involved here?
I don't see why not. My only, and I don't know what type of comments were actually made. I would hate for an evaluator to make a comment inappropriately, say this player, whatever, and it was in there, and then oh yeah, let's go meet, this player has this negative comment. So yes, there'll be some feedback available if you want some feedback.
Productive.
Yes. I certainly wouldn't want to go and tell a family that this evaluator made these comments and that they shouldn't have made them, but it was part of the process, was never meant for anyone's eyes but the people in that room up there, but we will certainly we will entertain that if you want to have a meeting with your child's evaluation. I want to wrap up quickly. Yep, oh, sorry, yep.
The first paragraph, I think you're missing some wording there. At what point in the process we file the appeal? You don't say final.
Parent guardian may appeal for event when there is a procedural error related to the player's placement. So if you
So we can file any point through the process.
I mean, I don't wanna speak for Brad, but I mean, if somebody has, wants to file an appeal at any point through the process, they're more than welcome to do so, and we'll listen to their concerns, no question.
Yeah, so if you have a complaint, if you think there's an appeal issue after session 1, for whatever reason, you can bring it forward. We will listen to it and see what grounds you have for it. So it is meant to be throughout the entire process, not just final team selection. What's that?
So you'd be dealing with it through the process?
I'll have no choice, yes, absolutely.
If your jersey number's wrong, we'll
If your jersey number's wrong,
The
that's,
issue
that's,
is-
yeah, if that's an issue, then we have to fix that, absolutely.
But as a parent, how would we find that out?
How would you find what?
If your
If the
kid's
jersey number's wrong.
number is wrong on
I,
team.
I truly don't think that's gonna be an issue, but
No.
we're gonna be double checking this and stuff, but. Any other questions on that? All right, team structures. So for the 24-25 season, teams will be determined based on total registration for each division, as well as an assessment based on the competitive trial process. Ultimately, it's our responsibility as an association to ensure our players are challenged while having the opportunity to find success over the course of the season. Success and competitiveness should be defined as winning around as many as you lose. So playing 500 hockey is considered competitive. We have to follow the mandate by Hockey Nova Scotia under 11, which means we will be having 2 under 11 AA teams. Our registration numbers are above that number. Under 13 players that don't make our AAA team will be allowed to try out. We talked about that. If we lose additional players outside of Sackville Minor at other levels, we will look at the numbers. I can tell you this, I have a passion for getting as many players into competitive hockey as we can. Right now our numbers indicate that we could have, I'll skip under 11 for a second. Under 13, our numbers indicate we can have a AAA, AA, A, and a B team. We don't have numbers for a second B team at this point. Our under 15 numbers indicate we could have under 15 AA, A, and 2B for sure, and we might have enough talent to do a second A team. I would love to see that. Our under 18 numbers, it's a kind of a crapshoot on that because we lose players to the Kings. Major Midget, I think we're finalizing today. The Kings are finalizing next weekend, and then high school starts this week. Right now, if we don't lose any under 18 players, we have enough to have 3 competitive under 18 teams, AA and 2A. I suspect that'll change. I want to get as many players playing competitive hockey as possible if the teams are competitive. There's no point putting a team on the ice at under 15A if they're going to lose 10-0, a second team. So we have to make sure they're competitive. As discussed earlier, at the under 11 level, we have a ton of players. We do not have a lot of defensemen. And right now, we have enough, if we went 4 teams, or 5 teams, we went 2 AA, I'm just hypothetically going to go this way, 2 AA, A, and 2B right now. Let's say we go that route, we are still short 4 defensemen to fill those rosters. If we had more defensemen, would we be able to have 6 under 11 teams? I don't know. Right now, we're so short on defensemen to get 5, we can't even entertain that. If you are an under 11 parent and you're not sure, and I know we had the discussion and I'm not rehashing that. All I'm saying is that if you think you may be interested in having your child switch to defense, yes, there were opportunities to play competitive hockey as a defenseman in Sackville this year based on numbers. It's no other way to say it. So you have until September 22nd to make that change. It will not change after that. If we end up with 26 defensemen and that's it, we will have to find 4 defensemen to fill the roster of those 5 teams. As an executive, we'll have to just make that decision at that point with the coaches.
So for the benefit of our membership, since you're telling us, I guess that's gonna go on the website.
Well, it's being recorded right now, so I'm on video. I've been on video for 2.5 hours here, so.
You're in your own movie.
Oh, wonderful.
So, if we're still short at the end, if a child opts or family opts not to try out for competitive hockey, and they just wanna play rec, would we offer a forward position for them to fill one of those defense options to move up?
Repeat that again? Just want to clear.
Let's say for instance, you got a family, a rec family that they just,
That haven't tried out at all?
yeah, I'm gonna play wherever, or whatever.
They have to try out.
Or even if they tried out, and they tried out as a forward, and they got cut to rec, would we consider taking one of the top cuts from rec and say, hey, would you like to play D?
That's a question that we have at the bottom of our list, if you recall.
Yes, okay.
So that's something that we're gonna discuss as the committee.
That is part of the that's part of the, one of the criteria that the team selection committee will consider. They have to try out though. You cannot,
Yeah.
a rec player who doesn't try out for competitive can't be bumped up to competitive at the end of the process.
But like, but we could and end up with a pretty solid D. Some kid that always plays forward and says, well, yeah, I'll go and give it a shot, and, you know, you could.
If we need if the numbers dictate we need 4 defensemen, we will have to make an executive decision to do that. I know the policy says no, but we're gonna be short. If the alternative is we miss a team, we lose a team.
Or
If we're short 4 defense,
We're less than 6 on the team, but there's differences.
we can't go, yeah, you can't go with 2 defense. We're missing
No.
4 defense.
No, yeah. But
Those kids that are called up will have to play defense for the entire season. It's just filling the
To
spot.
play competitive hockey,
Get off the
so
spot
you might get,
based on-
Well, the only reason why I'm asking
If
the
you play
question is because
defense,
elsewhere in
you
the
have to
policy, it
stop.
says that you can't do that.
well, yeah, you're right.
During tryouts.
Just for clarity.
No,
It
but,
just says during
all right, so
tryouts.
I'm gonna clarify that. So, the alternative, I know what the policy says. The alternative is we have one less competitive team, and then we gotta take a group of players and put them in rec, because we're missing 4 defensemen. So would we rather make an executive decision to come in and say, we are going to do this to get an extra team and get competitive players in this specific circumstance? This is not, we're just doing it because we want to, it's because we need 4 defensemen to fill another competitive team to get 17 kids playing competitive hockey at the under 11 level. I can't speak for the executive, I would vote yes for that every day of the week. It's not that we're just gonna switch it later because Johnny wants to play defense and halfway through tryouts. We're not gonna entertain that because we have enough defense. But if we don't, we then have to make an executive decision to ice a team. That'd kind of be an exceptional circumstance. I'd rather see the extra team than have those players go to rec and not play competitive hockey. And I said earlier at the start of this, I want as many competitive players as possible. Sorry, Dan. And last and not least, the team selection committee is made up of the VP of Operations, Kim, the VP of Competitive, the tryout facilitator, and the independent evaluators. As I've mentioned earlier, my kid is an under 15, trying for under 15 competitive, so I will not be part of that committee, under 15 competitive. We will find an executive member who will take my spot on that committee. I'll be involved in the other 3. And they will make the final decisions on players. I'll touch very quickly on coaches. Coaching, I'll be contacting coaches soon. We're gonna be doing some interviews. The hope is as a parent coach, you will not be assigned a team until your kid is placed. So we do not want a situation where I give a team to Coach X, the under 13A team, before the process is completed, and then that guarantees their kid on that team and they're a bubble kid. That's not fair to anybody. That's not fair to the players competing for that spot. It's not fair to the coach either. Not fair to anyone else. So I know it's not ideal where you're going to be handed your team. Last year I thought, and I expressed earlier, I thought it was tough as a coach myself to make those decisions when I didn't see the entire process. But that's the cards we were dealt with as coaches. We anticipate we're all good coaches here. We'll work with you in our coach development program. You'll be handing your team, you'll do a great job with them. And with the development program John Hughley has set up, we anticipate a good year. So at that point, once the teams are finalized, coaches will be selected based on that. and you will be interviewed. It'll be fairly straightforward, just trying to get to know you. I don't know a lot of you. I just want to get to know you, what your ideas are. And that's, any questions on the coaching side of it? If you're an evaluator on the list, I'll be reaching out to you very shortly to get you on that list to your assignments for evaluations. You are expected to attend every session for the division you're assigned to. If there are circumstances you cannot, I need to know right away. In fact, you're getting an email tomorrow to tell you about Thursday's evaluation training session. You have to go to that. If you cannot attend that, you cannot evaluate. I know it's tough, but we are trying to make this fair for everybody. And other than that, I don't have anything else. I've talked long too much. Yep.
I would just love to say to all the parents, like, it's awesome that everybody's here. And I think it's really important for the tryouts that, as an adult, we talk about mental health, don't put your tryout stress and your desire for your child to land on a team on your child. Just encourage them to do their best and to go out and work hard and have fun. And then when they land, wherever they land, embrace that team and be part of that team and really like give that team everything they can. If you say we're here for the kids, that's what this should be about. I think that's really important, and I want to thank you guys for doing this. Really.
Very well said.
Before we wrap up, does anyone else have any questions about this? If you do have an email you want to send me and you want to talk offline or something, I'll stick around for a little bit if you want to have a private conversation. Please, I have an open door policy. Please reach out. Please ask questions. Please understand this. Please share this with people that we are doing this. We are here for the right reasons. There's a ton of time put into this process. A ton of time put into tonight. I appreciate all your patience. And I really, really, truly hope that this season, the tryout process, it works. I know we're all not going to be happy. I get it. And I'm a parent as well. And I truly hope that at the end of it, you have a great season with Sackville Minor, and we have development, and we have a lot of fun this year. So thank you.
Thanks, Brad. I just, before we end our session, I'll hang around for this as well if anybody has any questions for probably the executive, the members of our executive that are here. I just want to kind of reiterate like the amount of time and effort that's gone into this. Now, Kim would know, and maybe Brad better than I do, but I'm not personally aware of any time in my existence with any affiliation with Sackville Minor Hockey where we've ever had an instance where we've invited our membership, our parents of our players to come in, like literally physically go through the tryout process before our tryouts even takes place. This was, you know, coming in as president, this was my number one priority coming into the position to really do a deep dive into the process that we have and look for areas where we can make some improvements and specifically get our membership involved because it's really important. We, as an executive member, we represent you as our members. And so it was really important for me to put the call out for the tryout committee, to have the individuals that participated, and I know there's a number of you in this room, so thank you again for being part of that. And you know, for you to have your voice, for us to have those conversations, talk about, you know, what you saw as maybe some hurdles that we had in our current process, and have that dialogue and conversation. You know, how can we look for positive change? What are maybe some things that we can try? You know, we literally took the tryout process from 11 other associations and dissected those policies in pretty good detail, in particular with the subcommittees as well that were created. This is not something that's been done like quickly or lightly, or without a lot of consideration and a lot of debate. And you know, as I mentioned earlier, like tryouts there's no perfect tryout, right? I work in the mortgage industry. We often require appraisals on houses. That's simply somebody's opinion, depending on maybe the current market conditions, right? And that's really, at the end of the day, like it's, you know, the trial process is essentially, you know, the evaluator's opinion of those players as they're going through the process. And so there's always going to be some imperfections there, no question. But I do honestly believe, myself, that, what we've put in place is definitely a significant step forward and improvement over what we had in the previous year. And maybe are there going to be changes we can make next year and some great dialogue and suggestions? Absolutely, right? Maybe we make some tweaks and adjustments going into next season. But my ask of our membership is to trust our process. One of the biggest things that's going to play a significant role, obviously, is going to be the evaluators that we have evaluating the children. That was something that was really important as well, to make sure that we weren't leaving it late to identify expressions of interest for evaluators. That's why that was done back in May when we put the call out for individuals to express interest as evaluators. There are a lot of individuals that have put their name forward to be evaluators that have nothing to do with Sackville minor hockey. We will have some independent evaluators that will be a bit of a hybrid with individuals that have a connection to Sackville minor hockey. But again, we have a very clear policy that if I have a child in a particular level, that I am not able to evaluate that role as well. And by having a bit of a hybrid mix of individuals that have a connection to Sackville minor hockey and then some that don't, it'll allow us to really gauge that, and improve the accuracy of the evaluation process as well. I really want to, I'm sorry I don't know your name, but I really appreciate your comments about embracing it. I'm a big believer in minor hockey about not where, how many letters are after, what's going on here? How many letters are after the team that my child happens to maybe land on. And I'm glad that, Brad really wants to focus on, and this is something that we'll probably share more over the upcoming weeks, a big initiative on focus on our coaches as well and developing our coaches internally, so that, because that's really, that's the grassroots for our player development is the coaches that they're going to have on the ice. So we're really putting a focus moving forward as an association on the development of our coaches as well and providing them with additional training and resources to help them enhance their skills. And I really do believe that it's not necessarily how many letters are after the team that your child may land on, but it's really about the experience for them, obviously their teammates that they're going to be part of a team on, but their coaches and the team roster that they're surrounded with, including the managers and all the other volunteers that create those teams. And it's really great point. Like as adults, it's really our responsibility to create that environment and development opportunities for the children, regardless of how many letters are happen to be associated with the team that they land on. And as I mentioned, it's the really thing that I dislike. There's nothing that I love more outside of my family than the game of hockey. And the thing that I really dislike the most is that there's only 17 spots on a team. And to Brad's comment, we have 140 individuals trying out at the going through the U11 process, and you think there's 17 spots on a particular team. You've got you're talking 140 kids. My heart goes out to all of them, but I think as adults and as coaches and leaders in our community, it really is on us to provide a positive environment for them and give them that opportunity to develop so that they can develop self-esteem and believe in themselves. And then next year they come to tryouts and then they continue to grow and develop and maybe move up to a level that they really have their heart set on. So I want to commend everybody for joining us this evening. I hope we often get criticized and it's just kind of unfortunately, it comes with the territory, but I do appreciate everybody taking time to join us this evening, and I know Brad mentioned as well, I can't stress it enough, we are literally all in this together. We're all pulling on the same rope, and if somebody has ideas or suggestions, and that was the great thing with our tryout committee, right? And there'll always be some evolution, but I really hope that the membership sees that we're collectively as a group, as an executive, and with our committee as well, we're really trying to put a positive foot forward to make improvements the best that we can. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this evening. I greatly appreciate it. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out after the fact by email or give me a call, whatever you'd like to do. And again, I'll hang around for a little bit here after our session as well. But I do want to thank our executive for all the time and effort that, not all of our executive here is here this evening, but these individuals here to my right, and Jen and Ryan as well. Thank you all for everything that you do for our association and our children. And all of the individuals that were on our tryout committee. I know I can see a lot of you here in the room as well. Throughout the summer, again, that process started in May, right? It was between all the different committees that I've been involved on, it seems like I've been in this room on a weekly basis the entire summer. And I want to thank everybody for your commitment to our association. And I really do hope that you have a good experience during the trial process. And I can just say, we honestly are trying to do our best and appreciate your support. So thank you very much. And again, if you want to attend next meeting, love to see you. Someone be my cue to shut up.
Have we turn this off?
Pizza out that window there?